bilgileri iletmemiz lazım karşı tarafa.
Medikasyonları,
Evet.
yaptığımız medikasyonları
Aynen.
yaptıysak kan transfüzyonu ya da kan ürünlerini mutlaka belirtmemiz lazım. Transfer sırasında götürecek olan ekibin neye
Kesinlikle
ihtiyacı
transport
olduğunu
modunu ve tedaviyi devam eden tedaviyi
tedavileri
söylemek
vermesi
lazım değil mi?
gerektiğini, hastayı niçin gönderdiğimi, hastadan
Endikasyonu.
bir üst basamaktan ne beklediğimi, beklentimin ne olduğunu ve tedavisinde tabii yönlendirici olması şartıyla neye ihtiyacı olduğunu belirtmekte fayda var.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Kesinlikle bunları söylemek lazım. Bununla beraber ne yapacağız? Gelir gelmez hemen sevk etmiyoruz. Hastayı ilk önce stabillememiz lazım değil mi? Karşı tarafla iletişime geçmek ve 112'de haber vermek lazım. Alıcı doktorun da bir takım sorumlulukları var. Hastayı değerlendirecek. Hastanemin kapasitesi buna uygun mu değil mi? Buna yardımcı olacak. Eğer hastayı alamıyorsa da hastanın başka bir yer bulması noktasında sevk eden hekime yardımcı olmak zorunda. Hasta birinci basamağa gitti. Level 1 travma merkezine. Burada yeniden değerlendirildi. A'sı B'si normal ama C'sinde kalp hızı yükseliyor. Kan basıncı düşüyor. CT çektik. Orta düzeyde bir splenik yaralanması var. Aynı zamanda pelviste kompleks bir kırığı var. Direkt grafide de sol femurda fraktürü var. Bu slaytın vurguladığı nokta işte benim de söylediğim gibi ilk basamakta bunu çekmediniz. İkinci basamağa gitti. Daha ileri merkeze gitti. Bu yaralanmalar var ama siz hata yapmadınız. Normal olan, doğru olan ilk basamakta CT'yi almamaktı. Zaten bu hastayı sevk edeceksiniz yukarı merkeze. Maalesef bunları kafa birlikte konuşacağız. Soru ve katkıları. Sanırım objektiflere ulaştım. Köy Learning Points'e tekrar etmekte yarar var. Eğer hastanın ihtiyacı kapasitesini açıyorsa mutlaka sevk etmeniz lazım. Sevki hızlandırmanız lazım mutlaka. Ve gereksiz tetkik istememek lazım sevk öncesi. Teşekkür ediyorum.
Evet. Bütün hocalarımıza ben çok teşekkür ediyorum. Katıldığınız için size de teşekkür ediyorum. Aslında bir çekiliş yapacaktım. Çıkana ATLS kursu ücretsiz olacaktı ama vazgeçtik şimdi. Başka bir zaman çekiliş yapalım. Öyle değil mi Mustafa Hocam? Zamanımızı da açtığımız için soru cevabı arada alabiliriz. Hepinize katılımlarınızdan dolayı çok teşekkür ediyorum. Ara veriyoruz. Sağ olun. Evet, aradan sonra bir oturumumuz daha var.
Test, test. Okay, ça marche.
Emre.
Normalde onun bir tane olması lazım. Abdullah mı? Il faut que tu appuies pour parler. Ouais, mais moi, tu vois, il est...
Test.
Ok. Hello, from Maya.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, happy to see you here.
Thank you.
We must begin. Okay, From Moya begin his presentation. He is the director of International Medical Service at the Vitos Xanit International Hospital in Malaga. And I invite you to begin, Dr. Maya.
Okay, I don't know if you loaded the presentation in the system.
The sound is not too...
Now the sound is better now?
They are working. Okay.
Okay. So they are working on downloading the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you to be here. You have a very difficult situation now. We have learned.
Yeah. I mean,
How are you?
Things are going better, fortunately. And well, I think my dad is coming out of the hospital, I think, soon.
Yes, we have heard. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, very, very happy to be.
How is your dad?
Yeah, he's fine. He's getting better.
Okay,
Yeah.
super.
Yeah. So yeah.
We hope to see you next year in May, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, anytime if nothing like this happens, I mean, I will be happy to see you at all. So, yeah, no problem.
Yes, we're waiting you, Dr. Moya. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
They are
Yeah.
preparing the sound. Okay.
Yeah, and I think they are down. I mean, I've been informed by the WhatsApp that they are downloading the presentation as we speak.
Okay. A few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Maya, how many years are you working in emergency medicine?
Well, I mean, our hospital is a private hospital. We see about 80,000 patients per year. I mean, that's the pre-pandemic, obviously. And we are usually, all our doctors are senior doctors. We don't have residents being a private hospital. So obviously, it's different from a public health hospital in which you have residents and so on. So we are about four doctors in the morning, four doctors in the evening, and two doctors in the night, 24 hours, 365. And we have also two consultant pediatricians because the pediatric emergencies are divided in Spain and the pediatricians specialize in pediatric emergency care run the department. So apart from four and two emergency physicians all the time, I mean, with the standard of consultant, we have two consultant pediatricians most of the time on the other side. Okay, I think I got control now of the presentation. I mean, I don't know.
Thank you. Emre, it's okay? We can begin? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think. Let me see if I can.
The sound, please. It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can start. I mean,
yes, you can start. We are listening to you. Okay.
Yeah, but I cannot scroll down the presentation. That's the only thing. Yeah, now, I think we can now. Yeah, definitely. So we'll start. I mean, merhaba everyone, and thank you, IPAD, for inviting me to participate even online, and always to invite me to a lot of projects and congresses and conferences. So thanks to everyone, especially to Professor Kander and all of you guys. I would like before to think for everyone involved in emergency medicine to think about what we do now in emergency medicine and how busy our emergency medicine departments are and whatever. I'm going to present a project called Smart Art that we develop. I mean, it's been developed mainly in the UK by a colleague of mine called Dr. Anjin Mohamed, that he runs the emergency department in Doncaster, and that's where this project is been proven and it's been tried for the last 4 years. So I would like all the audience to have an open mind. I got a lot of slides, but I know that we are restricted in time, so I'll try to make it as fast as possible. I only want to share the concept because this is something that probably we will need a conference in itself. If you have any questions or you are interested more in this project, you can always contact me or Dr. Mohamed in the UK. And then if you want more info, we will be happy to share it with you. So obviously emergency medicine now is a global problem, not only in the developed world, also in the low middle income countries, because we are increasing the demands every year. We have limited resources, and there are a lot of implications, health, financial, and political. Um, the concept of the Smart ER project is we have to understand what the downtime is in the emergency department and elsewhere, that we want a smart ER. I mean, we had the idea that the patient has to be the center of the process. This smart ER works better when we have an increase of activity. That is, a bit strange when we are talking about emergency medicine, because it seems like increasing activity is always worse. We think that increasing activity for us is better because the machine engineers everything better, that the patients are part of the solution, that we not only look at the in-reach care, which is where when the patient is in the emergency department, also the system looks at the outreach care. We try to bring order versus the chaos that usually is and usually happens in the emergency departments. And we believe in the major emergence of emergency medicine. Things have to change. Obviously, we need a change. We need to innovate. We need to be modern. We have to embrace technology. Obviously, if we center the process into a patient, that will lead us to have a patient-centered care. We have to rethink the relationships between the patients and us. The pressure is not only because of the blockage of the emergency departments in the exit. Also, when people come to emergency department with low acuity attendances, and I think that happens in every emergency department in the world. The challenge, I mean, I think there is a format problem with the slide, but anyway, I don't know, you can see that. I will tell you that the emergency departments are the most utilized services in acute, the most utilized department in acute services. Just to give you a figure, that usually nearly half of the population, between 35 and 50% of the population of every nation, attend the emergency department in 1 year. So in a country like ours in Spain, that we have a population of approximately 40 million, 42 million people, nearly half of that people, so we're talking about 20 million people come to the emergency department nationwide in our country. There is a variable demand, and we know that. We don't have a lot of technology to support us. I mean, it's very variable, the technology that we use in the emergency departments. We have electronic health records, we don't. So we need and require solutions that perform well under high demands. No, we think that the care doesn't have to stop when the patient leaves. It's got to be a continuity of care, when the patient goes. We have to have a measurable follow-up. Obviously, I think with the technology and with all the things that we have at our disposal, we need digital health solutions. We provide in-reach, with which we want the patient to engage while he is in the department, and the outreach, which is we need to follow up this patient where they live. So obviously we are talking about innovation, development, and improvement. We try to think ahead for all these things. Obviously, we develop this depending on where we are now and we are going to be in a few years. So we know that it's going to be an increase of demands, increased morbidity. The patients are changing. The patients are more pluripathological. The patients, keep living longer. And obviously they got more expectations. There is a problem with the staffing. I mean, you asked me how many staff we have. It's a problem worldwide. We haven't got enough doctors, enough nurses to attend the population at the moment. Obviously, there's a worry about the cost, the value for money, how efficient we are, and obviously social and IT changes. And that the last one is NHS strategies, because obviously this presentation and this system is working in a national health system hospital in the UK. There is something in the format of this slide anyway when we pass it there, but this slide only shows that there have been some strategies in the UK in the national health system, some projects to try to implement technology and digital workforce in the system. So as long as 2011, they started thinking about how they could do it. But now, I mean, that was obviously a thing for the future, but where are we now? What do we do in the emergency departments? I mean, we haven't changed the system, we haven't changed the way we work in, I mean, many years, probably 60 years, we've been doing the same, which is the patient arrives, the patient registers, the patient waits, the patient waits, the patient waits even some more, then is seen by a healthcare professional for consultation, they discharge, transfer, or we admit him. There are a lot of social, technological, and patient expectations change over the last decades that I don't think we are ready and we are catering for it. The emergency departments fail to keep up with these developments. That's a fact. I mean, I think everybody, the audience, and everybody working in the emergency department, we got this every day. And obviously, from a clinician perspective, where are we now? Obviously, the departments are always busy, under pressure. The waiting times are longer. We haven't got sometimes a good record keeping. There are many complaints and concerns that we have to face. It's very difficult in the emergency departments to establish accurate audit and data collection. If there is these inefficiencies in the medical staff, that leads to poor performance. There are many duplication of processes. There's a lot of time that we have to spend writing clinical records. Sometimes, we fail to meet targets that even our politicians or the guys in senior management put on us. We try to manage everything as a crowd management, not as an individualized patient care. I mean, it's only a review of the time that we spend with the patients. I mean, F1s and F2s in the UK system are like residents, junior doctors, and you can see that they spend most of the time with the patients, probably because they are less experienced. But it's a lot of time that we, especially if you see this is the time that we have to spend writing history. And you can see that it's a lot of time, 71%. We all know that. I mean, everybody that works in the emergency department know the time that we spent doing very, very valuable tasks that we could do or we can spare, if we have some technological help. And the patients, 80-90% of the time that the patient is in the department, they are simply waiting because they get triage, they wait, they are called, then they wait, to be seen by the doctor, then the doctor orders some tests. I mean, think about it, because the journey, I think, of a patient in the emergency department is well known by everyone. The longer the patients wait, the less time the clinician has with them. So it's an inverse relationship. The longer the patients wait, the more the complaints. It's that direct relationship. I mean, most of the complaints in the emergency departments are because they are waiting, or the patient perceives that they are waiting inappropriately. Frustration at doing nothing for several hours, waiting for something to happen. There is a feeling of inadequate consultation after the long wait. Is that it? There is a feeling that information wasn't conveyed bilaterally. And during post-consultation, there are communication issues that we all know. I mean, you can see in this slide that the downtime is the time that the patient spends in the emergency department. So it's a big percentage. And then compared to the time that the patient is spent interacting with us or receiving care. So what we do is trying to get downtime solutions. Is what can we do in that time that the patient is waiting and it seems to be wasted. So we are creating, and the concept of downtime, of trying to sort the problem out. What we try is, we said is embrace technology, trying to get, a patient-centered approach solutions with current NHS concerns and future design. I mean, we have to bust the myth that the patients don't know anything, that they are part of the problem, that our perception that they are most of the time satisfied, even with brief interaction and explanations, that they don't have anything to offer to contribute to the care. I mean, we disregard them, really. Usually, we also say that the patients are our enemy. They are drunk, disrupted, angry. Um, Obviously, the lack of communication also we blame to how busy we are. We think there are no better ways of doing things, and basically most of the time we think that we need to build walls and to try to separate them from us. As we said before, we are offering more crowd management and not personalized care. So the downtime solution, that's why we started with this project called Smart ER. So we want to use downtime more efficiently. If the patients are waiting, can they help? I mean, they possibly have 80, 90% of the data that we need to make the diagnosis. I mean, probably if they could have more time uh, telling us what's wrong with them, obviously probably they will give us more info, and then we probably will reach diagnosis and will reach a better care for them. Um, we can engage with the patient from the moment that they start waiting. Uh, Everybody has a smart device now at the moment, smartphone, tablet, laptops, and everybody comes to the emergency department now with their mobile phones. If not, we can provide kiosks in which the patients can interact. We can even provide with tablets or any laptops or anything that the department can provide. We can give an application that can give some ownership to most patients while waiting. We can improve the experience and we can improve performance and efficiencies. We can develop applications in other settings where the patients are waiting. So while the patient is waiting, we can do data collection. The future, we'll talk about the data analysis. We reduce the variation in one of the part of the system, so it reduces the whole system variation. The aim is to reduce variation in data collection. I mean, how many times the patient changed the history from one healthcare provider to another. I mean, from triage to be seen by the doctor, the patient sometimes, like change the history, and that confuses us. And imagine if the patient is writing his history in the own device, appears in our screen. That's in our Smart ER is about. Obviously, is consistent with any public health, with any healthcare organization. Obviously, we are trying to develop algorithms, obviously based on the information that we are collecting. The data analysis can be supported, and the data collection is even sometimes direct and live, happening at the same time. So this is what we do now at the moment. The patient attends the the emergency department, he registers. If he's suitable for the Smart ER, he starts interacting with the Smart ER, even via console, via tablet, via their own device. The history is taken from the patient because the patient is writing the history in the system, in his tablet or in the kiosk or in their tablet. Obviously, you can see all the travel and all the information that we can download. Obviously, we can start in identifying all the toxic habits. We even can start even interacting the system automatically, can give advice. They can be waiting down and then interacting with the system at the same time. And we can identify allergies. We can even interact with friends and families. We do a summary to confirm accuracy. Obviously, the portal and the system, when we see the patient, is open, and then everything is uploaded, we submit, and we can print it on a scanner or a file. So who is suitable for a Smart ER? Usually are patients that can interact with the system. Obviously, they have to be alert and orientated. They are patients or carers have to be able to use applications. Not to use a mobile device that a lot of people obviously do. Obviously, no contraindications to use, because this is not to stop the flow of being triaged and be identified as a critical intervention needed. And obviously, depending on the ability of the application. And you will see, obviously, that most of the people that come into the emergency department on a daily basis are suitable for the Smart ER, because approximately we found that 80% of the patients that attend an emergency department daily are suitable for this, because that happens in every emergency department in the world. 80%, really between 75 and 80% are people that come ambulance and are people that come with a minor illness. Even now, after we started developing and putting this system in motion, we are trying to make change in order for this system to be applicable to major illnesses as well. Obviously, it's more inclusive because we can put this smart ER in many languages. Obviously, the UK is a multi-ethnic country with people speaking lots of languages, and then we can put the system, and and we've been using the system in, I think it's been translated already to 17 languages. This is like how the architecture overview on how the smart ER works computer-wise. Sorry, this slide is very, very, very thick, but mainly you can see, and as I said, I'll be happy to share this presentation and to have more information, because a waiting patient can produce a lot of information for all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it can give us information, obviously the history from the patient. It can help us to research. It can help us to advertising, to advice, to education, to even pediatric care for the kids, friends. So the implications of a patient waiting and downloading information to us and to the system are massive, and we are seeing that. And Smart ER obviously communicate. Smart ER has been developed to address the in-reach problem. It allows a patient to enter clinical data regarding their condition, optimize questions of help, and determined by the condition of the patient. Obviously, using Smart ER, we can coordinate the in-reach and the outreach care. Post-visit digital care models they are developed at this moment based on conditions determined in the department. We can auto-generate information more efficiently, and allows a secure, personalized patient record to be created by the patient for the patient in the health space. And obviously, the outreach beyond the emergency department is the digital health allows care models to stay beyond the emergency department, because the patient is going to be going home with the application downloaded, and we still can communicate and with the technology at our disposal. Everybody now has a smart device, and we know how we interact now with the digital technology. And even we can send personal health information and outcome of the data through the patient health. Obviously, it will allow, and is allowing, some interaction with other care providers, GPs, nurse practitioners, social workers, etc., etc. Obviously, we are seeing that provides the insight in the models, to determine how effective, how efficient, and how satisfied the patients are. And this is again, a total healthcare platform which we want to do with the Smart ER, in which the patients are the components of the solution, and through the Smart ER, we interact and we can create a lot of data to help the patient and to personalize their care as much as possible. Obviously, we are seeing that Smart ER is providing at the moment key operational and clinical benefits to the department and the patient. A Smart Communicate allows patients' health space to be created and populated with personalized conditional information, and the outreach digital care models can be developed for patients, which obviously put the patients at the center of the care process, allow care to be seamlessly delivered across the care spectrum. The models can be built to include all providers, and models can interoperate with the system, and the model can be measured and optimized to provide optimum combined care on personalized basis. So it's all about trying to get the patient at the center, to follow it up, and to interact with other systems of healthcare. We can do a screening of patients. We can obviously know about their toxic habits or anything that we can identify and we can help with. For example, if they are not doing enough exercise, we can provide with information about how can we do exercise promotion. Is all about how to send information to the patient health space. The platform can be used to connect the patient to community-based services like Aspire or that's in the UK or social workers or whatever. Obviously, it's an opportunity to educate, inform the risks, and try to change health behaviors. That is one of the problems that concerns us more in the public health system, that we are not being very effective overall to change our habits in our population. Obviously, we can increase consistency, reduce the variation, intra-hospital, inter-hospital, inter-primary, secondary care. We have to have central control. We have a central updating. We have bespoke elements, research and updating. And obviously, this is down to the education medical information system that we can do all this with the smart ER, because we can advise, do all the information and improve how we can interact with the patient overall. In other settings, the waiting patients even can help us, like with all the information that they give in the smart ER, how to create new outpatients and how to refer them to the appropriate specialist, interact with pre-hospital. We can interact with radiology. We can interact with everything. And we are seeing that. We have a proof of concept because everybody, probably the audience is asking, and does this work? Obviously, it's been working for 4 years. And this is the first trial that we did in a minor injury unit. We did a trial for 3 months, and we did 6 weeks refine, which is in our training and setting everything in motion. And we did a 6 weeks testing. We tested this with 70, 80 patients per day, 12 hours a day, and it was put into and the EMIS integration into Symphony. And obviously, we target the patient satisfaction, the clinical satisfaction and productivity. Sorry that we cannot see the results, but everything, because of problems with the slide, but if you see what we tested, patient satisfaction, clinical satisfaction and productivity, everything was positive. Patient satisfaction increased, the clinician satisfaction obviously increased, because think about that while the patient is waiting, he's interacting with the system, and you got all the information in your computer when you see the patient. And obviously the productivity increase, because it reduced the time that we have to be writing notes and doing times, especially the healthcare practitioner. That was sorry, see if I can pass. Yeah. Obviously, one thing that we are seeing after we implemented the Smart ER is data is power. And this is in other way we are now. We have been acquiring 4 years now since the system was put in motion of data. And obviously, there are some questions about how we can comply with the data law protection, but we have all these, what we saw at the beginning, is now we have it because we have a lot of data. Now is where artificial intelligence will have to help us to try to work out what we're going to do with this data. Sorry about this slide. This is what I wanted to show from before. That is about this is all the results that we are seeing after applying the Smart ER. The patient gets more personalized care. They communicate bilaterally with us. Obviously, the waiting times are decreased, and the processes are improved. There is more satisfaction. There are better consultations. There is better post-consultation communication, and is less likely to return. That is one of the quality indicators of the emergency departments, and we can use it in different languages and modalities. For the healthcare practitioner, obviously, we have more accurate history. They are already written. We don't have to write it down. A better communication. We'll have more time with the patients, interacting with them. We have less time with the computers because the patient is already writing the history to us in their device and appears into our screen. We are more efficient. Obviously, the language difficulties are overcome because the patient is writing in their own language. Even disabilities difficulties overcome because we can optimize another time with them. In terms of the department, obviously it's a cost. It will reduce the cost. We increase the income. It's better flow. We increase the productivity. Less complaint. There's less negligent claims. It's better data. It's mandatory with all the quality indicators. We have central management of real-time data. happier patients. And from the public health system, obviously, is very advantageous as well because they have better data consistency, they reduce the cost. It's applicable across other areas, even in our primary care and whatever.
Dr. Maya, can you conclude, please?
Yeah. I mean, so obviously what we do is integrate this into what we already do, which is self-registration triage, and the smart TR will apply. And the summary concepts are we have to understand the downtime. Obviously, I think, I try to probably, make you aware of that. We have to change into a patient-centered process. The process works better with increased activity, and it provides better engineering. Patients are part of the solution. We can improve the in-reach care. The outreach care is a third solution to constraints. We have to bring order versus chaos, and it's the emergence of emergency medicine. As Einstein said, doing the same things again and again and expecting a different result is a definition of madness. The only thing that is constant in the universe is the speed of light. Everything else is relative, even time. So this is what the system is. We hope and happy to answer any questions that you have. And if you want more information, happy to provide it as well. Teşekkür ederim. I finish now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Maya, for this useful presentation. Do you have any question? Okay. Okay. Okay.
So for our next presentation, I will be presenting my colleague, Nazmin Guler, who is the expert in medical hypnosis and emergency medicine in France. She will be talking about the uses of hypnosis in emergency medicine. We have a question here.
Yes. Okay, Türkçe konuşayım mı? Okay, if you want, I can speak in Turkish. It's not a problem for me. Okay. It's better for me.
No, for sure.
Antoine, it is a problem for you? Okay. Test. Beni duyuyor musunuz? Okay, süper. Çok güzel. Şansıma Türkçe sunuyorum. Daha hızlı sunabileceğim ve daha çok bilgi verebileceğim size. Çok mutluyum bu sebepten dolayı. Antoine, tu comprends tout? Yes? Okay. I understand everything. Bildiğiniz gibi acil uzmanıyım. 2005 senesinde mezun oldum. 2012'den beri acilde hipnoz uyguluyorum ve uzun yıllardır tecrübem var ve bu konuda inşallah sizi ikna edebilirim acilde hipnoz uygulamanız için. Bu konuda zaten Başar Hoca ve Mehmet Gül Hoca ile düşüncelerimiz var. Belki yakın zamanlarda size bir atölye çatısı altında bir eğitim teklif edebiliriz. Bunu hatırlarsınız. Tenten dizisindeki fakir. Deli olduğumu düşünüyor musunuz? Yok. Sizce benim gözlerime bakarak beyninizin kontrolünü alabilir miyim? Alabilir miyim Behçet Hoca? Okay. O zaman bakalım alabiliyor muyuz, alamıyor muyuz? Keşke alabilseydim. Gerçekten hastanedeki yönetimdeki insanların beynini çalardım ama benim gayet işime yarardı. Öyle bir gücüm, kuvvetim olsaydı. Bildiğiniz gibi acilin ortamı çok stres, çok büyük bir anksiyete yaratan bir ortam. Özellikle korku, ağrı, stres, öfke, özellikle öfke patlamaların çok olduğu yerler ve gerçekten bu ortamda çalışmak ve yaşamak çok çok zor. Çünkü bizim de kendi ayna nöronlarımız var ve ayna nöronlarımız olduğundan dolayı bizde de çok kaldıramayacağımız duygular uyandırabiliyor ve sonuç olarak öfke patlamaları çok yoğun olan bir yer. Sizce tabii ki doğru bilinen yanlışlar var. Ki zaten bu sebeplerden dolayı yıllardan beri acilde zaten hipnoz uygulanmıyor. Yıllardır böyle. Çünkü işte psikiyatride yapılabilir, işte anestezide yapılabilir ama acil kesinlikle yeri değil. Ve ön yargılardan birisi işte bir zaman kaybı, Çok fazla ses var. Hastaların direnci çok yüksek. Hele hazırlıksız kesinlikle olmaz diye ön yargılar var. Bakalım bunları bir bir yıkabileceğiz mi? Başlangıç olarak vaktimiz var. Son sunum olduğum için biraz 5 dakika fazla sunum ekledim. Size 2 tane video gösterebilmek için ilk videoyu göstereyim. Belki aranızda bazıları görmüş olabilir bu videoları. Tekrar gösteriyorum görmeyenler için. Omuz çıkığı redüksiyonu. Bu hastamız diyaliz hastası. Daha önce omuzu çıktı ve acile ağlayarak geldi ve dedi ki ben ilaç istemiyorum. Lütfen bana ilaçsız müdahale edebilir misin? Ben evime bir an evvel dönmek istiyorum. Haftada 3 sefer acile gidiyorum artık hastaneye geliyorum ve ben artık hastane görmek istemiyorum. Gördüğünüz gibi röntgene gerek yok, omuz çıkık. Hepinizin bu konuda zaten tecrübesi var biliyorsunuz. İlaç, serum takmamız gerekiyor, monitoraj, midazolam, süfentanil, değişik ilaçlar kullanmak zorunda kalıyoruz. Hipnoz seansı genelde anestezi gibidir. Endüksiyon vardır, derinleştirme vardır, çalıştığımız an vardır ve ondan sonra hastayı uyarma vardır. Tabii bunların hepsini ilaçsız yapıyoruz. Serum takmadık hastamıza, dikkatinizi çekerim. Şu an endüksiyondayız. Yavaş yavaş derinleştirmeye geçeceğim. Özellikle nefes odaklı, nefesinizi takip edin şu an diye hastaya telkinliyorum. Gördüğünüz gibi aşırı gencim. Yıllar önce yaptığım ve hemen eğitimden çıkar çıkmaz yaptığım bir hipnoz tedavisi. Arkadaşlar videoları çekiyorsanız da sosyal medyaya koymayın. Çünkü gerçekten arkadaşlarıma, bu hastalara söz verdim sosyal medyaya sızmayacağını videoları. Çekebilirsiniz ama kendiniz için. Efendim? Ona ne söylüyorum? Nefesine odaklanmasını gerektiğini söylüyorum. Ondan sonra yavaş yavaş, şimdi bana lazım olan ne? Rahatlaması ve omuzunu hissetmemesi. Yani ilaçların yaptığı şeyleri ben telkinliyorum. Omuzunu artık hissetmiyorsun, rahatlıyorsun, kasların gevşiyor. Direkt telkin veriyorum ve yavaş yavaş zaten hastamız rahatlıyor. 5 dakika sonra redüksiyona başlıyoruz. Hastamızı genelde güvenli bir mekana gönderiyorum ve orada omuzunu bana emanet etmesi gerektiğini, yani disosyasyon teknikleri kullanıyoruz. Burada bana omuzunu emanet etti. Arkadaş çekiyor ama biliyorsunuz normalde bu prosedürler çok bazen hızlı güç kuvvet isteyen prosedürler. Hastamız biliyorsunuz hiç bağırmadı. Bazen 2 kişi tutuyoruz biz acilde gerektiğinde.
Pas forcément exactement ce que vous me disiez, j'arrive pas forcément à suivre ce que vous me dites, mais par contre, ça m'aide un peu.
Şimdi prosedürü arkadaş kolu çekiyor, ben hipnoz uyguluyorum ama kendim hipnoz uygulayıp da kendim de çekebiliyorum. Bizim acilde özellikle omuz çıkığı, anterior omuz çıkıklarını biz acilciler tekrar yani redükte edebiliyoruz. Posterior ortopedistler, anterior biz yapıyoruz. 6 dakika arkadaşlar, biliyorsunuz acilde normalde 6 dakikada mümkün değil. O yüzden zaman kaybımı gördünüz. İlk ön yargıyı yıktık. Zaman kazandık. Çünkü normalde bu hastayı ben bizim orada critical care üniteye koyuyorum, monitoraj yapıyorum, ilaç yapıyorum, hemşire bulmam gerekiyor yoğunluğun içerisinde. Yani gerçekten yarım saat 45 dakikada ancak hazırlıyoruz hastamızı. 6 dakikada 1 saat içerisinde acilden ayrıldı. Vaktimiz olduğu için ikinci bir video gösteriyorum. Ondan sonra size ikna etmeye çalışacağım bilimsel olarak. Burada ufak bir çocuğumuz var. Bisikletten düştü. Annesi lokal anestezi yapmadan bacağını sütürasyon yapacağız. Bu benim tabii ki ilk başladığım zamanlarda ve o zamanlar biraz tedirgin hipnoz uyguluyordum ve böyle sesimi kısa kısa konuşuyordum. Çünkü biraz utanıyordum. Çünkü herkes garip garip bakıyordu. İşte bu ne yapıyor, işte deli midir nedir diye. Çok sessiz konuşuyorum. Çocuğa tabii ki bir oyun yapacağız beraber diyerek sedyeye getiriyorum. İstediği, sevdiği bir oyunu yapacağını telkinliyorum. Ve tabii ki vizüel fokalizasyon kullanıyorum. Yani karşındaki bir noktaya bakar mısın? Onların tabii ki tekniği çok derin. Hani onu büyük bir eğitim gerekiyor ama noktaya bakabilir misin diyorum. Çocuk bakıyor tabii. Ondan sonra da istediği oyunu oynaması gerektiğini telkinliyorum. Tabii telkinlerken de aynı anda bacağına tabii ki direkt telkin veriyorum. Bacağı rahatlıyor. İşte bir yavaş yavaş bacağı uyumaya başlıyor. Bir daha artık hiçbir şey hissetmeyeceğini, bacağından hafif bir rüzgar geçtiğini ve hiçbir şey artık hissetmeyeceğini direkt telkin olarak söylüyorum bunu. Genelde çocuklara hipnoz uyguladığımız zaman gözleri genel olarak açık kalıyor. Yani ön yargı biliyorsunuz, gözleri kapalı, ondan sonra kendisini teslim ediyor ama burada çocuk gördüğünüz gibi hareket ediyor ve gözleri açık. Ellerini gördünüz mü? Sizce ne yapıyor? Oyun oynuyor. PlayStation oynuyordur muhtemelen. Git bir oyun oyna diyorum. Bizim biliyorsunuz gençlerimiz artık virtüel dünyada devamlı oyun oynuyorlar. Muhtemelen orada bir oyun oynuyor. Bakın yan tarafta ben çok ses yapıyorum ve çocuk çıkmıyor transtan. Genelde bu çocukları birkaç kişi tutmak zorunda kalıyoruz. Ben bir şeyler hazırlarken çocuk genelde ne yapıyorsun diye mesela soru soruyor, anksiyete içerisinde ağlıyor. Gördüğünüz gibi kendi dünyasında. Yarasını temizliyorum ve sütürasyona başlıyorum. Gördüğünüz gibi hipnozu uyguluyorum ve kendim sütürasyon yapıyorum. Yani tabii ki iki arkadaş olduğumuz zaman ben hipnozu uygulayıp sütürasyonu da başka birisi yapabilir. Genelde şu an artık hasta acilde hemşirelere ve hasta bakıcılara da eğitim veriyoruz ki doktorlara destek olsun diye. Normalde bunu bu şekilde hipnozsuz yapmak imkansız biliyorsunuz. Çocuk 7-8 yaşlarında bir çocuk. Sütür bitti. Şimdi artık uyandırıyorum. Ne zaman istersen buraya geri gelebilirsin diye telkin veriyorum. Uyandı çocuk gördüğünüz gibi. Transtan çıkması çok enteresan oldu. Şimdi bakın çocuklarımıza bu şekilde yaklaşım yaptığımız zaman ilerideki posttraumatik travmalardan koruyoruz. Benim oğlum 2 yaşında sütürasyon yapıldı ona alnından. İnanın hala da 23 yaşında ve hala da onu hatırlıyor. Şimdi bu reşit insanlar tam uzun onlara bakmamıza gerek yok ama gerçekten ileriki yaşlarında onları yapılacak tedavilerden bir nevi koruyor gibi oluyoruz yani bunları uygulayarak. Çünkü travmatik hafızayı şey yapmıyoruz, yerleştirmiyoruz. Gördüğünüz gibi all terrain hipnozis dedim. Yani her yerde 4 çeker araba gibi her yerde bunu uygulayabilirsiniz. Yani acilde, telefonda, ambulansta her yerde uygulayabilirsiniz. Tabii ki hani benim gelmek istediğim genel mesaj şu. Yani gerçekten hipnozu elinize aldığınız zaman, kullandığınız zaman iletişim olarak 7/24 her zaman kullanabileceksiniz ve size gerçekten insani ilişkilerinizde çok büyük bir rahatlık verecek. Yani özellikle hastalarla olan ilişkinizde her zaman kullanabileceksiniz. Yani öfkeyi nasıl yönetebilirim, hastanın korkusunu nasıl yönetebilirim? Uzman doktorlarla biliyorsunuz sürekli ping pong oynuyoruz. Yani özellikle mesela solunum nefesi çekiyorsa hasta kardiyologla pneumologla arasında oynuyoruz. İşte karın problemi olduğu zaman hepatogastro ile işte cerrahla arasında böyle bir ping pong oynuyoruz. Yok onun hastası, bunun hastası derken işte bu uzmanlarla bile ilişkilerimizi daha iyi yönetebiliyoruz. Self hipnozis de çok önemli. Benim için gerçekten hipnozun en büyük katkıları iletişim ve self hipnozuz. Mesela ben gerçekten bu pandemide biliyorsunuz Fransa'nın kuzeydoğusunda çok büyük bir patlama yaşadık. Çok stresli bir dönem yaşadık ve bana gerçekten çok yardımcı oldu. Her gün self hipnozuz yaptım kendi duygularımı yönetebilmek için. Arkadaşlar gerçekten hastaların duygularını yönetmek istiyorsanız ilk önce kendi duygularımızı yönetmemizi öğrenmemiz lazım. Ben kendi duygularımı yönetemiyorsam hastanınkini yönetemem. İşte hipnoz aslında buna yardımcı oluyor. Ve tabii ki videolardaki gördüğünüz gibi formal hipnozu, o da gerektiği zaman, eğer hasta gerçekten kendi duygularını yönetiyorsa yani hipnoz uygulamaya gerek yok. Yani sanmayın ki ben her hastaya hipnoz uyguluyorum. Gerektiğinde uyguluyorum o şekilde. Tabii ki sağlıklı olarak kendinizi daha iyi hissetmeniz için. Size gerçekten Inside Out dizisini, filmini bakmanızı tavsiye ederim. Çok duyguları açıklayan çok güzel bir film. Yani genelde bizim korkulu rüyalarımız kim? Mr. Anger and Mr. Fear. Acilde bu ikisi başımıza gelince zaten bunlarla uğraşmak çok zor. Ama artık ben bunlardan korkmuyorum. Bunları çok güzel yönetebiliyorum. Özellikle öfkeli hastalar hiç problem değil benim için gerçekten. Benim aslında genel vermek istediğim insani ilişkilerinde gerçekten bunu bir İsviçre bıçağı gibi düşünebilirsiniz hipnozu. Özellikle tabii ki normal ilaçların yerini tutmaz ama insani ilişkilerde yönetmekte bana göre bu İsviçre bıçağı gibi bir şey. Acilde olmazsa olmazlar, kesinlikle her acilcinin cebinde bulunması gereken, zor anları yönetebilmek için gereken bir uti, bir tools diyeyim, Türkçesini şimdi aklıma getiremedim. Size birkaç araştırma gösteriyorum. Bakın bu araştırmada Elvi Halong 2000 senesinde çıkan bir araştırma. Endovasküler tedavilerde özellikle burada renal damarı kateterizasyon yapıyorlar. Yani arteritik hastalarda. 3 tane gruba ayrıldı. Kontrol grup en üstte. Ortada empati ve en altta hipnoz. Burada anxiety ve ağrıyı nasıl yönetebilir biliyorsunuz, scale'ler var şu tarafta ve gördüğünüz gibi hipnoz grupta daha iyi yönetim var. Çünkü hastanın stresini ve ağrısını daha iyi yönetirseniz eğer daha uyumlu oluyor ve bakın daha erken bitiriyoruz tedavileri. Empati iyi, çünkü empatiyle bir grup yapması çok iyi oldu. Çünkü mesela ben acilde başladığımda hipnoz uygulamaya, ya Nazmiye işte sen hastalarla jantisin, o yüzden etkili oluyorsun yani diye bana böyle bir ön yargı var. Ama bakın gördüğünüz gibi empati tabii ki kontrol gruptan normal travmatik iletişim diyorum ben ona. O tarz iletişimden daha iyi. Mesela ben laboratuvara gittiğim zaman hemşire güler yüzlüyse gerçekten daha iyi. Surat asıyorsa bende stres yaratıyor yani sonuç olarak. Gördüğünüz gibi ve bu gruplarda ilaçlar kullanıldı. Mesela burada midazolam ve süfentanil kullandı ve en üst grupta, kontrol grupta hem daha çok ilaç kullanıldı hem de bakın ağrı yönetimi çok kötü. Scale'ler çok yüksekte. Hipnozda az ilaç kullanıldı. Ağrı ve stres yönetimi en düşük seviyede. Şimdi bu yeni bir meta-analiz çıktı 2021'de. Bunu muhtemelen siz isterseniz okuyabilirsiniz. Bakın burada son 20 yıl araştırmalarını bir araya getirdiler ve sonuç olarak bakın hipnoz ağrının %73'üne kadar düşürebiliyor. Yani gerçekten acaba lüksümüz var mı hipnoz eğitimi almamak için? Gerçekten, çünkü hem kendinizi koruyacaksınız, hem hastayı daha iyi yönetebileceksiniz, hem kendinizi daha iyi hissedeceksiniz. Şimdi burada da başka bir araştırma görsel olarak çok önemli olduğu için size göstermek istiyorum. Üst tarafta hastanın bilinci yerindeyken elini lazerle ağrı veriyorlar. Yani elini acıtıyorlar. Bak gördüğünüz gibi ağrı bölgeleri uyandırılıyor. Altta hipnoz uygulanıyor ve ağrı bölgelerindeki aktivasyon sönüyor. Yani hipnozla gerçekten görsel olarak bunu görebilirsin. Beyinde gerçekten büyük bir etkisi var. Yani bu şey değil, yani hayali bir etki değil. Gerçekten beyin görüntülemede bu bir MR veya PET scanner, ikisi kullanılıyor imaging olarak. Görebilirsiniz ki gerçekten hastanın ağrısını çok iyi yönetebiliyoruz ve bunun gerçekten reel bir etkisi var. Burada başka bir anestezist ameliyattan sonra hastalara nötr bir fluid enjekte ettiği halde bakın yanan bir fluid enjekte ediyorum diye hastayı telkinliyor. Gördüğünüz gibi hepimizin ağrı hafızası olduğu için ağrı bölgeleri uyanıyor. İkinci etapta hastaya ben sana nötr bir ilaç enjekte edeceğim ve nötr bir ilaç enjekte ediyor. Bakın telkinlerin bile normal günlük hayatta ne kadar önemi var. Çünkü bizim gerçekten ağrı hafızamız var ve kullandığımız kelimelere çok dikkat etmemiz gerekiyor. Bunu zaten tomografide çok yoğun yaşıyoruz. Hatırlarsanız hastayı tomografiye getirdiğimiz zaman aman dikkat yanacak, iod enjekte ediyoruz diyoruz. Ben mesela bizim röntgen bölümündeki arkadaşlara lütfen diyorum, ne olur artık dikkat, yanacak, iod enjekte ediyorum demeyin lütfen diyorum. Diyorum ki gerçekten şu an sakin olun. İşte size bir ilaç enjekte edeceğiz. Bir şeyler hissedeceksiniz. Bir sıcaklık. Bakın yanmak başka, sıcaklık hissedeceksin ve gerçekten sizin için çok hoş olacak diye provokatif bir şekilde telkinliyoruz ve inanın hastanın o anki yaşadığı daha pozitif oluyor. Aynen böyle, biliyorsunuz beynimiz negasyonları duymuyor, keywordleri duyuyor. O yüzden hastanıza yaklaştığınız zaman stres yapma yerine sakin olun, rahatla. Yani pozitif terimler kullanacağınız bütün keywordler pozitif olsun. Yani canın yanmayacak yerine ne söyleyebiliriz arkadaşlar? Mesela bir çocuğa tedavi uyguladığınız zaman işte stres yapma, canın yanmayacak. Sakin ol, seninle iyi ilgileneceğiz, göreceksin her şey iyi geçecek gibi. İşte kendi kreativitenize bırakıyorum. Gerçekten pozitif kelimeleri kullan. Burada maksat pozitif olmak değil, yani hayata pozitif bakmak değil. İletişiminizi pozitif kelimelere, yani negatif kelimeleri pozitif kelimeye çevirmek. Yani önerim şu, tabii ki hastaya bütün prosedürleri A'dan Z'ye anlatmak zorundayız. Yani gerçekten ağrıyı anons etmeyin, prosedürü anons edin ama ağrıyı anons etmeyin. İşte sonuna geldik, sunumun vaktim var biraz herhalde. Son olarak bakın, araştırmalarda EEG'de kesinlikle herhangi bir karakteristik bir tracing yok. Sadece sakin bir uyanık hal olduğunu görebiliyoruz. Ve burada bu da çok yeni bir sistematik review 2017'de publikasyona geçti. Bakın şu an artık bütün araştırmalar aynı fikirde. Yani ben hipnoza girdiğim zaman 3 tane network uyandırıyorum. Salience Network, Executive Network ve Default Network. Yani ben bu üçünü birden aktive edebiliyorum. Normalinde ben şu an sizinle konuşurken üçünü birden aktive etmem imkansız. Ama trans halinde bu üçünü birden aktive edebiliyorum. Yani bu ne demektir ki ben kendi içimdeki gerçekten daha farklı davranışları ve daha farklı kompetanslara ulaşabiliyorum hipnoz halinde. Biliyorsunuz ben çocuğa normal halinde şu bacağını uyut demiş olsam veya bir hastaya şu kolunu rahatlat demiş olsam bu kız deli diyecek bana. Ama ben hipnoz halinde direkt telkin verdiğim zaman uyguluyor. Tabii ki hipnozu plasebo olmakla suçlandı ama plasebo değil. Hipnozun içinde plasebo var ama sadece plasebo yok. Tabii bunları anlatmak uzun sürer, vaktimiz yok. Yani sonuç olarak hipnozu her alanda, ağrı ve stresin olduğu her alanda prosedür olsun olmasın. Mesela bir migren için, bir karın ağrısı için bile kullanabilirsiniz. Ben ayrıyeten part-time terapi uyguluyorum. İnanın çok şeyler, mesela posttraumatik, tabii bunlar terapi, bunlar daha uzun işler de. Ama acilde kriz yönetiyorsunuz. Yani terapi yapmıyorsunuz. Kriz yönetiminde gerçekten medikal hipnozu her alanda kullanabilirsiniz. Özellikle mesela anksiyete krizine girmiş insanlarda çok çok etkili. İlaç vereceğinize ben 2-3 dakikada gerçekten onları hemen sakinletebiliyorum. Sonuç olarak for every stress and pain okay. Tabii ki ön yargını hastamın direnci yüksek ama bu doğru bilinen bir yanlış. Hastam gerçekten çok büyük bir stres içinde olduğu için siz onun kurtarıcısınız. Ve genelde siz ona bir hasta size derse ki eğer lütfen doktor beni kurtarın, bu ağrıdan beni kurtarın dediği an zaten sizin etkiniz altındadır ve hipnozu uygulamaya hazır, hipnozu kabul etmeye hazırdır. İnanın ben kronik hastalarla ilgileniyorum. En kolay uygulanan yer acildir. Acilde o kadar kolay ki ve o kadar hızlı hipnoz yapabilirsiniz ki çok basit ve çok rapid. Çok kolay, çok yani hızlı teknikler var, çok kolay. Tabii ki ilişkilerinizi düzeltiyor ve kendi ruh sağlığınıza da iyi geliyor. Yani sonuç olarak time saving and less medication. Yani bu gerçekten benim atasözüm oldu hipnozda. Gerçekten zaman kazandırıyor ve ilaç da kazandırıyor. Herhalde vaktimiz bitti ama isterseniz prehospital olarak bir video gösterebilirim. Bakmak ister misiniz? El kaldırın. Okey. Tamam. O zaman bir call center'dan da bir ses kaydı dinleyeceğim stres yönetimi için. Vaktiniz var madem. Buyurun. STEMI hastasını ben şu an Anjou'ya getiriyorum.
Donc là, je vous montre simplement, on va commencer la séance, tu peux exprimer, simplement de suivre votre respiration, d'accord? En remarquant l'air qui entre dans votre narine droite profondément. De la même manière peut-être, ou d'une manière différente, je ne sais pas. Vous allez remarquer qu'il y a plein de bruit autour de vous, à travers vos oreilles.
Bakın ses var, monitör çalışıyor, alarmlar var, hiç problem değil. Ne kadar çok ses, o kadar hipnoza sokabiliyorsunuz hastanızı.
Des mouvements de va-et-vient dans tous les sens.
Monitörajı gördünüz değil mi? STEMI'yi görebildiniz yani. STEMI var resmen hastada. Tabii ki aspirin, tabii ki bütün ilaçları, heparin hepsi yapıldı. Evet. Şu an bana gerçekten bakın eliyle soruyorum hangi bölge vücudundaki hangi bölge acı çekiyor şu an bana kalbini gösteriyor. Şimdi şu an katalipsi teknikleri kullanıyorum. Birazdan bana neresi ağrıyor diye sorduğumda bakın bana kalbini gösteriyor. Direkt iletişime girebilirsiniz yani hipnozda hastayla. Çok konfüzyon teknikleri kullanıyoruz. Ve şu an ben ona hani vücudunun başka bir yere işte kalbine yardımcı olacağını söylüyorum. Bacağını gösteriyor. Yani burada rasyonelite aramayın. Hipnozda rasyonelite yoktur. Yani zaten konfüzyon teknikleri kullanıyoruz. Şu an şimdi bir çapa yapıyorum. Çünkü ben Anjou'da olmayacağım onunla. Yani bir renk çapası yapıyorum ve telkinliyorum. Kateterizasyon room'da olduğun zaman bu rengi hatırlayarak tekrar aynı şekilde self hipnozis yapabileceksin diye. Bakın ağrısı düştü. Altının üstünde morfin uyguluyoruz. Morfin uygulamama gerek yok. Özellikle kardiyologlar mümkün mertebe yapmayın diyorlar. Çünkü gerçekten hasta o zaman daha çok midesi bulanıyor. Daha az uyum sağlıyor anjiyoda. Ben bu hastaya özellikle hipnozdan çıkmak zorunda kalmadığını ve tedavinin sonuna kadar hipnoz altında istediği gibi girip çıkıp kalabileceğini telkinliyorum. Çünkü ona şu an lazım ama sonra da lazım. Ağrısı düşüyor, 7'den 4'e düşüyor. O yüzden sadece parasetamol koydum. Anjou'dan sonra hastaya soru soruyorum nasıl geçti sizin için diye. İnancı, tabii kısaca şey yapıyorum, inancı olmadığını ve herkese tavsiye ettiğini, ağrısını ve stresini kateterizasyon odasında çok daha iyi yönetebildiğini söyledi, paylaştı bizimle. Yani bakın insanın hayati teklezi en dorukta olduğu halde biz değil mi? Yani sonuçta bir kalp krizi orada bile stresini çok gayet normal bir şekilde yönetebildi ve ben o hipnoz uygulayabildim. Çünkü ön yargı ne? İşte bu durumda hastanın hiçbir yeteneği yok, yapamaz. Gördüğünüz ses kısa sürede ses olduğu halde hastaların direnci düşük. Bütün ön yargıları herhalde kırabildik. Son olarak bu ses kaydını dinle diyorum. Bir tane anne yani görsel olarak hastanızı görmeseniz bile telefonda hipnoz uygulayabilirsiniz. Daha da etkili olabiliyorsunuz. Ses iyi gelmiyor herhalde. Bebeği kusuyor. Yani burada sadece ses tonunu takip edin. Anlamasanız bile ses tonundan hani stres yönetimini anlayacaksınız.
Elle est consciente là actuellement?
Elle ferme les yeux, elle ouvre les yeux.
Vous la trouvez fatiguée, c'est ça?
Oui, oui.
D'accord. Madame, je vais vous envoyer une ambulance et elle sera surveillée en pédiatrie. D'accord?
Oui, merci.
Voilà. Prenez-la contre vous, madame, allez.
Oui.
Vous l'avez contre vous, là?
Oui.
Voilà. Vous allez suivre sa respiration, tranquillement. D'accord?
Oui.
Allez, vous sentez sa respiration?
Oui.
Voilà. Elle respire comme il faut?
Oui.
Voilà, donc maintenant vous allez vous synchroniser avec elle, respirer avec elle. Vous allez voir, si vous vous calmez, elle va se calmer. D'accord? Voilà. Donc vous allez garder votre calme pour lui transmettre votre calme.
Oui.
Voilà. Ça va mieux?
Oui.
Madame, les secours sont partis, hein, ils vont arriver très vite. D'accord?
D'accord.
Soyez rassurés. Ok?
Oui.
Vous l'avez toujours contre vous?
Oui.
Voilà, ressentez bien sa respiration. Prenez une grande inspiration, madame. Voilà, c'est bien, très très bien. Et vous allez ressentir votre bébé contre votre peau.
Oui.
Voilà. Vous voyez, voyez bien, regardez.
Tabii bir
Elle est-
acil
elle est
uzmanı
plus
olarak
sereine,
benim
elle pleure,
görevim,
c'est
çünkü
bien.
biz triyaj yapıyoruz
Voilà, madame,
112
c'est très, très
santralde.
bien.
Çocuğun iyi olduğunu
Continuez de
tabii
bien la garder contre vous, de
anlamak.
bien la ressentir contre
Çocuk
vous.
iyi, rahatlıyoruz.
Voilà. Ça va
Anneyi
mieux?
sakinleştiriyoruz gitgide.
Voilà, très bien, madame.
Gördüğünüz
C'est
gibi
très bien
bakın
ce que vous faites.
dediğim
Prenez-la
telkinleri
contre
direkt
vous,
dinliyor. Ne kadar
ressentez
derin
bien le
nefes
contact de
alıyor.
vos bras sur elle.
Derin nefes al diyorum, dibine kadar nefes alıyor.
Très bien.
Burada
Voilà.
sadece
Et vous prenez
solunum
une inspiration
telkinleri
profonde,
veriyorum.
de plus en plus profonde. Voilà, c'est très bien. Très très bien.
Ses
Et vous
tonunu
allez
farkını
ressentir l'air
hissedebiliyor
qui
musunuz?
entre dans votre narine droite, profondément. Voilà, c'est très bien. Et l'air qui entre dans votre narine gauche, de la même manière peut-être, ou d'une manière différente. Voilà, c'est bien. Ça va mieux, madame?
Oui.
Voilà, c'est très très bien. Donc vous continuez de la garder contre vous et vous suivez votre respiration et la sienne, tranquillement. Et les secours arrivent très très vite. D'accord?
Ils arrivent, d'accord.
Ils sont déjà sur la route, madame. Soyez rassurée, votre gamine, elle va bien. Regardez, elle est calme. Et vous lui avez transmis votre calme, c'est très bien.
Merci.
Voilà, madame, c'est très très bien ce que vous
Bir
faites.
de bir
Continuez
merci
comme ça.
alıyoruz sonunda gördüğünüz
Allez,
gibi.
madame, au revoir.
Oui, ça va mieux. Au revoir.
Sonuna geldik herhalde. Teşekkür ederim. Soruları olan var mı? Zeynep hocam? Behçet hocam her zaman sorusu var. Buyurun. Sor sor.
Ben teşekkür ediyorum. Gerçekten çok istifade ettim. Daha önce de benzer bir şey bir yerde görmüştüm. Şöyle, şimdi Nazmine hocam bahsettiği şey gerçekten insanı bir alemden başka bir aleme götürmektir. Mesela bizim bildiğimiz işte buna işte görünür veya şehadet alemi, yani cismen yaşadığımız şey. Bunun dışında işte mana alemi var, hayal alemi var. Hayalde yaşıyoruz, uyku alemi
Evet,
var.
evet, tabii.
Uykuya giriyoruz. Halbuki her şeyimiz fizyolojik olarak çalışıyor. Ama biz başka şeyleri duymuyoruz. Misal alemi var. Böyle onlarca bu şekilde alem var. Ve insan bunu buradan buraya götürebiliyor. Şöyle bir şey söyleyeyim. Ya bir sözden su olur mu? Yani bir kelime söyleyeceğim, bu su olur mu? Oluyor. Mesela nasıl? Mesela örnek olarak hani Zeynep hocam bana kırılmayacağını bildiğim için onu ben şimdi kötü bir kelime söylesem hemen su olup gözyaşı akıtır, su olur. Evet. Kelimeden öfke oluyor mu? Evet, olabiliyor. Özlem hocama bir şey söylesem desem ki mesela eşiniz artık sizi sevmiyormuş filan. Hemen değil mi bir öfke
Aman.
olur. Ya öyle şey yani nazım geçtiği için onlara söylüyorum. İstersen şey söyleyeyim. Aynen bunun gibi kelime painkiller olabilir. Yani
Kesinlikle.
İşte buna işte isim konulmuş, hipnoz denilmiş. Yani kelimeden ağrı kesici ilaç olur. Kelimeden ağrı da olur. Kelime
Telkinler
söylerseniz
işte kullandığımız
kalbime
kelime.
dokunduruyor diyorsunuz. Tam kalbime indirdin. Hakeza kelimeden mutluluk olur. Kelimeden su da olur, gözyaşı da olur. Teşekkür ediyorum. İstifade ettiğim için paylaşmak istedim.
Evet Behçet hocam, katılıyorum size. Normal hayatımızda farkına varmadan zaten hipnoz uyguluyoruz. Ama tekniğini öğrenirseniz daha da etkili olursunuz. Gerçekten hani tavsiye ederim. Çok teşekkür ederim. Ben Başar Hoca'ya ayrıyeten ve takımına ayrıyeten teşekkür ediyorum bu davet için. Ve ayrıyeten Emre'ye de, Emre Tetik'e de çok ayrı teşekkür ediyorum. 7/24 gerçekten bütün sorularımıza cevap verdi. Her konuda yardımcı oldu bize. Gerçekten hepinize çok teşekkür ederim.
Affedersiniz, ben bir soru sorabilir miyim? Beni göremediniz arkada da. İsmim
Pardon.
Doktor Alten Özkay. Bir kere hipnozun acilde kullanılabileceğine inananlardanım. Elinize sağlık, tebrik ederim.
Teşekkür ederim.
Bunun dışında galiba yurt dışında kullandınız. Türkiye'de hiç denediniz mi?
Tam anlamadım. Mikroyu şey yaparız. Yurt dışındası gerisini duymadım.
Türkiye'de kullandınız mı? Hipnozu acil serviste.
Şimdi ben yurt dışında çalıştığım için, yani Türkiye'de çalışmadığım için uygulamadım.
Peki aydınlatılmış onam gibi bir şeye ihtiyacınız var mı?
Hasta tarafından mı diyorsun?
Evet.
Şimdi bizim Fransa'da artık hipnoz hani herhangi bir onay istemiyor. Yani ben bazen anons ediyorum. Çünkü morfin gibi hipnoz yapacağım dediğiniz zaman morfin gibi etkisi oluyor. Hasta zaten hemen sizi dinlemeye başlıyor, etkileniyor. Mesela kalp hastası için vaktim oldu haber vermeye ama çocuk için yani anlamaz diye haber vermiyorum. Ya duruma göre ama yani resmi legal olarak herhangi bir izne ihtiyacım yok. Onu o şekilde yani zararsız bir yöntem diye Fransa'da zaten kabul etti ve Fransız Tıp Akademisi.
Peki acil servisin ortasında uyguladığınız zaman özel bir odaya...
As arrival on place. And this study also showed the disproportion in adults as well and in pediatric patients, because when we check this article and when we see the subgroup analysis, for example, in adult patients, in additional minutes of the time from EMS arrival to the administration of epinephrine was associated with the 4% decreasing in the odds ratio of survival to hospital discharge. In pediatric patients, it was not 4, it was 9. So we should even work faster when we have the pediatric patients. Besides, in this study, we see that I marked the time 10 minutes because authors show us that if we give the adrenaline in the time over 10 minutes, the first dose of adrenaline over 10 minutes when EMS arrival, the chances to survival rate decreasing 57% compared to those group in which we give adrenaline in the first 10 minutes on the place, on the scene of resuscitation. The second study, this study evaluates pediatric patients, and this study was conducted in the US and Canada, and this study confirmed the same in one thing. I mean that epinephrine administration was associated with the survival to hospital discharge among pediatric population. However, the timing in this study, the timing of adrenaline administration was not associated with the survival rate, but it's important that in the previous study they examined the non-shockable rhythm. In this study they examined all rhythms, so it was mixed shockable and not shockable. Maybe this parameter has place here, and we can this way transfer those data. Of course, we can also have other studies because, for example, in this study, in this meta-analysis, because I want to show you three most recent meta-analyses. In this cohort, studies show that adrenaline has an adverse effect on the long-term prognosis of out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. Why? I suppose we will discuss it because it's controversial. But in this one, I show you several forest plots. And on this forest plot, for example, which show the effects of adrenaline versus placebo on return of spontaneous circulation, we see that in randomized control trials, the odds ratio of the ROSC was at the level, as you see, near the 40% versus 11.7. In the cohort studies, it was 22.1 versus 6%. So, according to this, we know that adrenaline increasing, giving the adrenaline, we increase the ratio of return of spontaneous circulation. But what was happened when we divide those studies according to the shockable and not shockable rhythms? In shockable rhythm as well as in non-shockable rhythm, we see also this huge disproportion. But in shockable, the difference was not statistically significant because P was 0.27, but in non-shockable rhythm it was P at the level 0.001. So we should give adrenaline mostly at the non-shockable rhythms according those studies. Of course, when we're talking about survival to hospital discharge, we can see also the results. The results are the effectiveness of survival to hospital discharge among the out-of-hospital cardiac arrest patients are smaller, and we know that, and we are preparing for that. But in RCTs, the difference was not statistically significant. But in cohort studies, it was 0.03, so it was 6 versus 5.4. However, the next slide is important because we see a positive relation. Because here, when we're talking about survival to hospital discharge, we see that the much more patients survive when the adrenaline was not given, because when was given, only 16% survived to hospital discharge versus 28.6% when the adrenaline was not given. In non-shockable rhythm, it was relatively similar and not statistically significant, but we will discuss it why it was happened. The same when we're talking about giving the adrenaline, the effect of adrenaline on the survival to hospital discharge with good neurological outcome. We see that this disproportions, especially in the RCT studies, was not statistically significantly because it was 0.25, it was 2.2 versus 1.9 respectively percent. In cohort study, we see delicate or positive situation because it was 2.3 versus 2.7, but we talk about it that adrenaline can perform the occlusion of the blood vessels, especially in the brain. So maybe this is the situation. When we're talking about the shockable and not shockable, because this is last slide from this study, we see the same situation what was observed in the survival to hospital discharge. I mean that in shockable rhythms, when we not give adrenaline, we have better survival to hospital discharge with good neurological outcome. How we can translate those data? We know that the most important thing when we have some articles, when we have some trials, is the preparation of this article, is the methodology of those articles. And when we see, for example, here, we see only 2 randomized control trials and other are non-randomized. So in the future, when we want to see current, really good quality data, we should perform really nice multi-center international study focusing on the effectiveness and safety of the adrenaline. Other way, we will be as a child in the fog, because we see totally different situation in the RCTs, totally different situation in non-RCTs, because in RCTs we know that we should measure some points from time to time. We have the current protocol, but from the non-randomized we even don't know how long the resuscitation period taken, how many doses of adrenaline was placed, what was the delay of the adrenaline given from the EMS arrival, etc., etc. So we have many questions in the non-randomized trials. So we should focus on it, and in the future we should focus mostly on randomized trials. This is actually the results of our meta-analysis focusing on pediatric cardiac arrest, and in this, for example, we see that of course, when we're talking about out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, we should give the adrenaline, because the survival to hospital discharge was much more better when we give adrenaline, but in, for example, out of hospital cardiac arrest, the situation was totally opposite. But as you see, the number of publications are also small, so we cannot perform, for example, in this situation, some additional subgroup analysis, because we cannot do this. For do this, we need some extra publications, we need to create some really nice databases with those data of those patients. So I suppose this is the future, what we need to do. And of course, last meta-analysis, and the biggest one, because it's network meta-analysis, conducting 18 trials and including over 21,000 of out-of-hospital cardiac arrest patients. And as you see on this table, the use of standard dose epinephrine, because they analyze different groups. High dose of epinephrine and epinephrine plus vasopressin increase the return of spontaneous circulation and survival to hospital admission, but may not improve survival to hospital discharge with good functional neurological outcome. However, standard dose epinephrine improved the survival to discharge among patients with non-shockable rhythm, but not those with shockable rhythms. And this is the same as we see in the previous studies, so we should give the adrenaline as fast as possible in the non-shockable rhythms, and then we have chances to increase the odds ratio of the outcomes of the patients. What will be the future? When we're talking about the future, we should focus, as I say, on or create together, even together, really nice prepared randomized control trial, including a lot of patients, including all data which we want to do, which we want to examine. For example, the time of resuscitation, the comorbidities of those patients, the time of EMS arrival, the delays, time, survival to hospital discharge, and longer outcomes, because we know that survival to hospital discharge or 1 month survival rate, it's not too enough for us. We need much more. We need to see what will be happened with those patients, for example, after 1 year, because it's totally depending. And for us as a clinicals, as a researchers, the most important thing right now is to create such a database, to publish it, to change the thinking about adrenaline and learn some much more knowledge about it, because of course, as I show you, we have some articles, we have some studies, but only a small amount of those are good studies with good data, with good knowledge. But even those knowledge we have much more questions than previously. So I suppose the next step for us of all will be conducting next nice study, and I hope in the next year we will be able to show you, I suppose, maybe preliminary data of those studies. Thank you so much.
Fantastic talk, Dr. Luspak. And I think the idea of epinephrine trial is very, very important. I think that will redefine the utility, because in resuscitation, whatever we have is a lot of anecdotal data, and RCT is very, very mandated. So I think what we'll do is we'll go through all the lectures, and then we'll open the forum for discussion and questions after the session is over, if that is okay with all the speakers.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Luspak. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I want to invite my old friend from New Zealand, Dr. Bradley Pecker. His topic about simulation resuscitation.
Merhaba. Kia ora, tenakoto, tenakoto, tenakoto, kotoa. And that's just a traditional Maori, which is the indigenous people of New Zealand's greeting. I was asked to talk a little bit about simulation and resuscitation. And I think what I'd like to do is bring it to you from the angle of that, yeah, maybe we should do it, or should we do it? And do we need the investment to do it? So I'm going to go through that, and hopefully at the end of this talk, I've maybe planted some seeds in your head. So simulation really is an important part of medical education, but it's not without risk. What happens in the sim lab stays in the sim lab. That's fair, because when people do simulation, they are putting themselves at risk. They're exposing themselves to make mistakes, errors, criticisms potentially, and it can get quite uncomfortable when you're debriefing very high acuity events. So what we ask is that you check your egos at the door and remember that there's always more than one way to do things. This is not the way I'd like you to do it, and this is really what this lecture is about, and trying to prevent you from doing this sort of thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what it is and why do we do it, why should you do it, why don't we do it, and how do we do it. So I'm going to start off with a definition about teamwork, and this is from Eduardo Salas, who's a industrial psychologist at the University of, or Florida State University, back in the early 90s. And I think this is probably the most worthwhile explanation. Is a teamwork is a collaborative effort, a group to achieve a common goal, to complete a task in an effective and efficient way, seen within the framework of a team, which is a group of interdependent individuals who work together towards a common goal. That sounds reasonable, I think, and I think that's really what we're trying to do. So we'll start with what is it that we actually do. So who do you actually train with? When you do resuscitation, who do you train with? Do you train with a bunch of doctors, or do you train with your nurses? Do you train with students? Do you train with the orderlies? Do you train with other ancillary staff? How often do you do it? What is actually your focus? What are you actually trying to learn? And I think at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself what you're doing, and does it actually make sense? So interprofessional training, some of you may be familiar with that term. Interprofessional is not intra-professional. Intra-professional is a bunch of doctors just practicing, or just a bunch of nurses. Interprofessional training means that everybody who actually will be in the resuscitation is actually taking part and doing it. So I've listed a couple of studies, one of them is mine, and what studies have shown is that when you do practice and you do interprofessional training, it increases performance of the team, increases morale, it increases satisfaction of the providers in their job, it increases communication and collaboration on many different outcome scales, and ultimately this is what actually helps increase outcomes. So we've just heard a talk about epinephrine, and that's really important, but I think if the team doesn't work, you're not going to get anywhere. And so it's great to get that technical knowledge, but I think this is the next step, and this is how you make it work, and that's what we continue to talk about. So the nature of what we do is very different from other operating teams within the hospital. All of our teams are what we call rolling teams, right? So you have a cardiac arrest or a trauma code or a medical or surgical code within the emergency department, and the teams are ad hoc. Who knows is going to show up? It's not always the same people, and you don't necessarily know who they are or what their skill levels is, and that's very difficult to assess when they show up and try to figure out in the heat of the battle, trying to figure out what's going on. And then of course, there's always the staggered presentations. When do people show up to the code? The anesthesiologist comes when they can, the surgeon may or may not be there, the ICU doctor may or may not be around. And so how do you then incorporate someone who doesn't really have all that knowledge into a team that's actually working at the moment? And so that is a skill that needs to be practiced and learned. So what I'm talking about are non-technical terms. The technical terms was the last lecture. This is more of the non-technical stuff. And this is communication. And when we talk about communication, we're thinking about things like leadership. How do you lead effectively? Active listening. The term active listening means that when someone speaks to you, you know that they know that you understood what they've said. So that can be circular communication, that can be facial gestures, body language, any different means of doing it. That is an important skill, and that's something that, again, needs to be practiced. There's also the concept of active followership. Active followership within a working team promotes people to actually speak up and give their opinions and do what they think should be done. And incorporating that into a functioning team is likewise a practicable skill and difficult to master. Who hasn't negotiated in a resuscitation? As I started to say, there are more than one ways to do things. How do you figure out what the best way to go is, and how do you do it so you can move the team forward and continue with the resuscitation without alienating any of your team members? De-escalation is also an important part of this. When a member of your team is escalated and not functioning very well, how do you get them back into the fold and get them to start practicing and working with you? One of the most difficult things you might find as a leader is task delegation. How do you give up authority? How do you give up that power? That's really important, and again, that is a skill that needs to be practiced. We'll talk a little bit in a second about crisis resource management or stress management. All these situations are very stressful. And the last term there is graded escalation. And graded escalation means when one member of the team sees that there's something wrong and they point it out and it's not listened to, how do you step that up and how do you increase your opposition to what they're doing, and how do you do that in a polite way? And this is something that can be practiced again. And I ask you to think about who has been in a resuscitation where there wasn't civility. Civility is probably one of the most important things that we can, and again, that should be practiced. So critical resource management, or some of you may have heard it as crisis resource management, composes really of four things, and this is from the aviation industry. And it's divided into tasks, the individual aspects of the person, the team characteristics, and then interruptions that you have in it. Now, I'm not going to read these, but you can take a look at these. And if you think about all these different aspects of what goes into a team performance, those are all different things that you could potentially work on or take in a simulation and figure out how to address that and make your team function better. So these are some crisis resource management principles that we use, and I'm going to show you a framework at the end of how we decide, and these are what we use as our learning outcomes. And though they seem like very small things, they're actually quite important and can add lots of value to your resuscitation. So I'm going to move on to why we team train. So this is the concept of practice how you play. Now I know everybody here is really excited about New Zealand and South Africa and the World Cup rugby tonight. Go All Blacks? Yeah? No? All right. It's Australian football. Really, what we're talking about is increasing your performance, developing habits that make a team function well. Talk about the processes and things that make a system or a resuscitation go well, and to create a culture that actually is beneficial for patient outcomes, and test your systems to make sure that those systems are actually working and will increase your outcomes. So let me ask you, when you think about team training, is this what your team looks like? Can you play the video, please?
Eric Maycroft, the front changer, Daniel Smith, Carrier, Mike Morneau, Jackman, Stan Doolittle, and the Fueler, Justin White. These 5 men were all together a year ago. Solid stop so far. Harvick says he needs help on entry and a little bit more help on drive off.
Here's the anatomy.
So 15 seconds to change your tires. How many people have gone to the mechanic shop and had their tires changed in 15 seconds? Not too many, right? But to do that, they would have had to practice that. That's not something that just happens. And that's a really good description, obviously not medical, but how a team functions well together, interacts, and plays upon each other's strengths and weaknesses. This is a out of cardiac arrest. It's a simulated event that we did in the car park. And so the question for this particular one is, should they resuscitate the patient in the car park, or should they take the patient inside and resuscitate him? And obviously they've chosen to go inside, but as you can see, they figured out and managed and worked with themselves to actually do CPR, and rather than riding on the rails, the smallest nurse available jumped on the bed and started doing CPR. So when you can think about training and what we do, and you compare it to things like sport or music, aviation, space flight, nuclear reactors, or military, people practice these things. This doesn't happen in isolation. These people practice them, and arguably what we do is as or more important, and do we practice? And just as a side note, after you got your driver's license, does anybody actually practice driving? But as we all know, it's probably one of the most deadly things we do. So this is this idea that experience is the best teacher. But as I finish and go through the rest of this presentation, I want you to think about that statement and ask yourself, is it really the best teacher? So this is a quote from a American College of Emergency Physicians about physician training. It's conventional training cannot provide the optimal number of clinical contacts to obtain adequate competency in all clinical areas. So it's estimated that you need to see somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 patients to become an expert in emergency medicine after you've graduated from training. So that's another 3 or 4 years. Right? So does that really go ahead with experience is the best teacher? Maybe not. So I'm going to step back a second and ask you, well, why don't we necessarily do this? Why isn't this something that's part of our normal day? Some places maybe do. I know that we do, but not probably enough. So the reasons, what are the barriers to doing this? Well, it's time, money, equipment, space, expertise, who does the debriefing, is someone familiar with this? And as I mentioned at the beginning of this, simulation does have a risk to participants. There is a psychological toll that does happen if things go wrong. So that goes back to the expertise of the person running the simulation and the debrief to make sure that it's done right. And there's also a little bit of desire. Does anybody have a desire to actually practice driving? No, right? We do these resuscitations every day, but do we need to practice those resuscitations? So when you're thinking about why should you do this, there is some evidence, and some of you may have seen this sort of data before, but in the late 60s, early 70s, the rate of small aircraft and commercial aviation disasters was alarmingly high. And so the American Aviation Association reached out to a bunch of psychiatrists, and they developed a process called crew resource management. And what they did was they looked at things that pilots needed and aircraft crew needed. And this is leadership, team coordination, decision making. And what it actually does is it identifies threats, teach people how to communicate and mitigate different situations. And as a result of that, aviation catastrophes steeply declined to the current rate, which is incredibly small. So no one would even think about really getting on a commercial plane and having a crash, but that actually was a real thing back in the 70s and 60s. So how does this parallel medicine? Well, what they did was proficiency and task-oriented. It requires a team to function well and have a good performance. And you looked at the different influencing factors that cause potential team dysfunction and develop and validate different performance and measurement tools. And what is the optimate size for a team for different emergencies? I must have run thousands of simulations, and one of the questions that I frequently ask is, did you have too many people or too little people? Or is it the three little bears and it was just in the middle and just right? I don't know that we know the actual answer. I think it probably more depends on team dynamics. The last thing on this list is cognitive overload, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that at the end. So how do we do SIMS? This is probably the most important thing. Well, it takes a lot of planning, it takes a lot of work. It's like herding cats, trying to get lots of people to do different things, especially from different specialties. But in reality, I think it's about building professional relationships. So if you're planning to do things with different members, whether they be nurses, different kinds of doctors, different allied health or security or orderlies, I think that in itself has value. You have to pick the right scenario and create your learning objectives. And our learning objectives we take from that list from our crew resource management, or CRM, crisis resource management tools. And you figure out which communication skills you want to actually debrief and talk about. And so what we do is we pick those out and then we use a framework for analyzing those. And so you think about the inputs, whether it's the doctors or the medicine or the situation, how we're going to train them, what are the different valuables that are the mediating circumstances, and then what are your outcomes? What are you hoping to achieve? And if you do that, it actually becomes a little bit easier and you narrow it down, and this big body of work actually can be broken down into different steps. So this is an example of this. This is a study I did a couple years ago where we looked at, should doctors actually be running codes? These are cardiac arrests. And what we did was we had this idea of cognitive offload where the nurses would run the code, the nurses would call out the drugs, the nurses would do the timing. That left the doctor free to do an ultrasound, to talk to the family, to look in the clinical notes to figure out if we should terminate resuscitation, to figure out if there's an actual cure, something that can reverse it, whether they need to go to cath lab, whatever it is. And so what we found is that it actually worked. And after doing cardiac arrest for 20 years and the past 5 years doing it like this, I can't imagine doing it any other way. So EDAM, Emergency Department Arrest Management, and this is on all of our code trolleys, as you can see here. And it has the list of what the doctor's responsibilities are and what the nurse's responsibilities are. And in the middle shows what the shared responsibilities. And what we found is that the objectives that we picked were looking at teamwork in general, looking at communication, promoted active questioning or active followership, adherence to our current ACLS algorithm, this idea of the cognitive offload, and also cognitive shared decision making, which I think is a really important aspect of any code. We used focused debriefing, and so we addressed any technical issues. If there was an elephant in the room, if someone gave the wrong dose of adrenaline or a cardiac drug, or if they didn't shock at the appropriate time. But the vast majority of it was spent on exploring learning objectives and making sure that those were met and understanding what those goals were. So I'm going to shift a little bit and finish up with a little bit about systems. Now, systems are how things work. Are things where they're supposed to be? Are the right people in the right roles? These sort of things. And what we looked at, this is really good for things that involve lots of different working parts. So whether you're giving a mass transfusion, looking at mass casualty incidents, or specific or obscure injuries and exposures, these are really good ways to do this. Other ways are when you have other things that are systems-based simulations, or when you have multiple specialties or specialties that are not used to being in the emergency department. So what you're looking at here is a simulation of a perimortem C-section. So the guy who's wearing a tie there is a consultant obstetrician with the emergency physician at the head of the airway and the neonatologist with the black sleeve reaching in there. And so this is an uncommon event in the emergency department, but how do you plan for it? And you don't necessarily have to plan for it as much as you have to have the team actually working together to make sense. So what we're talking about is an integrated healthcare system, and there are 6 basic things that make this work. And so is it safe? So safe for the staff, but also the patient. And is it providing the care that it's designed to do? Is it effective? Does it work? So is it right care, right time? Does it really do what we want it to do? Is it patient-centered? Is it timely? Is it efficient, right? Avoiding waste, and that is really important in what we do. And is it equitable? Does it make sense? So I'm going to leave you with this idea of the simulation center and what actually this can do for you. And this is sort of the grand hypothesis of simulation in resuscitation, is that you're putting the patient and the process together, and does it actually improve outcome? So this was I'm going to end with a quick story, and this is about processes. I was walking to get a cup of coffee, and one of the medical consultants saw me and said, "Hey, look, we've got a little problem in our medical ward." And this was a young, healthy psychiatric patient that was admitted for pneumonia, who decided he wanted to kill himself by cutting his wrist in a locked bathroom. So by the time we were able to get the door off to the bathroom, and the patient was very combative, and we had to do a delayed sequence intubation, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with, where we would knock him down with ketamine so we could actually pre-oxygenate him and then go ahead and fully intubate him and resuscitate him. That's not something, you wouldn't plan a simulation like this. This isn't something that happens every day. This isn't something that's going to be part of your regular curriculum. But the way this would work was that you'd have a team that could function and people that could communicate and actually understand what the needs and what wants of different members of the team. So experience is a great teacher, but it comes at a very high price. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brett. We will take question later in this open discussion. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Peckler. So I must remind the audience, I want to tell a story. Dr. Peckler was one of the earliest leaders in simulation way back in 2002, when simulation just started picking up in the world. And he was one of the earliest leaders. In fact, I was trained by Dr. Peckler. I was my faculty, and I was his resident about 20 years ago when simulation just started. And today we see the world of simulation developing. So this session is uniquely designed, and you see clinical research in terms of epinephrine. You see resuscitation teamwork in terms of simulation. And we have a fantastic talk from Dr. Gajewski, who is one of the world leaders and research opinion experts in in resuscitation, and he's going to speak on ECMO. Dr. Gajewski, please. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the invitation and the hospitality here in Turkey. And I've been involved in WASM for quite a while, and it's been wonderful to see how things have developed and become more of a pan-world conference instead of just India and the United States, and really love to see that. I was asked to talk about ECMO, too big a topic, so I thought I'd keep it just for ECMO for cardiac arrest, which fits in with the epinephrine topic and with simulation. So really, this is a question of what's the status of research on using ECMO as part of CPR, and this concept of people in refractory ventricular fibrillation who are really too healthy to die, but how do we salvage these people? Several disclosures for consulting and speaking and membership and NIH grants. So this is a room where you might put someone on ECMO in an emergency department. This is actually in Osaka, Japan, where they have an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest protocol that specifically says if the person's in refractory ventricular fibrillation and they haven't had return of spontaneous circulation after 3 doses of epinephrine, that you transport them to an ECMO-capable hospital. So in this room at this hospital, you could intubate the person, do an echo, put them on ECMO, and then you'd move the patient down the hallway to the cath lab. Some of the recent studies have been done where the people are taken directly to the cardiac catheterization lab, and then I'll show you a video in Japan where the cardiac catheterization lab's in the emergency department. So there's lots of different ways to approach this, but the goal is the same. It's to set up early perfusion that replaces the native perfusion and then fix the problem that led to the cardiac arrest. So we'll just run through a case and then ECPR as a rescue strategy, some early experience, and then the recent randomized trials and what's the future. And I think that's integrating CPR protocols for early transport and early ECMO. So here's a typical patient that you'd see in refractory ventricular fibrillation. She's 47 years old. She has a past medical history of hypertension and smokes cigarettes. And then she gets short of breath and calls EMS. So she's the one activating the EMS system. And then they arrive. This is a typical house in West Philadelphia, and they arrive and they see her behind a locked door, glass on the top of the door signaling that she can't breathe. Then she collapses as they come up to the door, which is locked, so they have to break the glass. And it takes them 2 minutes to break the window and then open the door and check for a pulse. And they start chest compressions, they put an AED on her, she's in ventricular fibrillation, she gets defibrillated. And then she has ongoing VF and gets continued ACLS. They make the decision to intubate her quickly and to transport her to the emergency department. So she gets a total of 3 shocks and 3 doses of epinephrine and a bolus of amiodarone en route. And it's only 15 minutes from collapse to arrival in the emergency department. So that's good. That's a short transport time. And then she gets to us in the emergency department, and we keep doing what we do, giving epinephrine, doing chest compressions, giving other medications, and trying to sort this out. And what you can see is that 44 minutes after ED arrival, so 59 minutes of cardiac arrest, she's been shocked 12 times. She's gotten 10 doses of epi, vasopressin, amiodarone. And if you look at the monitor, this is what you see. She's in ongoing ventricular fibrillation. So what do we do at this point with this patient? Do we call the code? Do we continue to do what we're doing? Do we have any other solutions? And do we have any physiologic parameters that we can look at that suggest that this person should be salvageable? Well, one quick parameter we can look at is her end-tidal CO2. Hers is 32. That's probably very similar to what mine is right now. That suggests that she should be salvageable, and it makes you wonder why we haven't been able to get this person back into a perfusing rhythm. So CPR works, but as time passes, survival and neurologic function decrease with sort of each passing minute. And once you get deep into a code, return of spontaneous circulation is very difficult to achieve because you get progression of what's called the metabolic phase of resuscitation. So at the very start of when someone collapses with a shockable rhythm, they're in what we call the electrical phase. You shock them. within the first couple minutes, there should be a good chance that they come back. And that's sort of the whole physiologic principle behind defibrillators that are implanted into patients. And then as that progresses, you also have to increase circulation. But after a period of time, you start to get changes to the cell membranes, you start to get lactic acidosis, and then you start to get low cardiac output, further ischemia, refractory VF, and a worsening metabolic phase. And it's very hard to get the person out of that. So you need to come up with other solutions. This is a paper that we published in Circulation in 2016. I'm a member of the Japanese Circulation Society's Resuscitation Science Division. So this is using the Utstein database for Japan, so the basic data entry format for cardiac arrests. And in Japan, every cardiac arrest gets entered into this database within 24 hours of transport. So it's a massive database that you can study things in. And if you look here, you're looking at the length of time for the pre-hospital resuscitation efforts, and then the percentage of patients or the number of patients that get return of spontaneous circulation and then have a favorable neurologic outcome at 1 month. And you can see that depending upon the rhythm that these patients have, it's 40 to 50 minutes of CPR to get 99% of your neurologically intact survivors. And you can see a big drop off in the curve right about here. So you're at about 20 minutes and you get up toward most of your survivors, and then you just get a few more, and you get some that get return of spontaneous circulation in the emergency department. So the real question here is, how can we move to a point where we use other strategies, and instead of having this curve level off, it can continue up and we can salvage people instead of just with epinephrine, chest compressions, intubation, other medications. We can continue to fix the problem that caused the cardiac arrest and get more survivors. That's the fundamental question we're asking. So what can we do for this patient who's had 59 minutes of CPR, 10 shocks, 10 doses of epi, and is still in ventricular fibrillation? Continue conventional CPR. Is that futile? So people always say that Einstein said that doing the same thing over and over again is his definition of insanity. Einstein didn't actually say that, someone else did, but it's attributed to him, and I always think of him when I think of, are we doing the same thing over and over, and how's that going to help our patient? We could maybe use mechanical CPR, so put the person on a Lucas device, take them to the cath lab. So you're getting your perfusion from your mechanical device and then use that as a bridge to PCI. And the rationale for that is that most refractory ventricular fibrillation is from coronary artery occlusion. And most of those coronary artery occlusions are either left main trunk or left anterior descending. So by taking that person to the cath lab, you should have something you can fix. So there's case reports of that, and there's some interesting ones. I'll show you one of those. Here's me on a mechanical chest compression device. I was stupid enough to turn it on. It hurts. Don't do that when you're conscious and sober. Or we could use eCPR. And this has evolved over time. The first times I talked about this, there were case series. And then I helped our Japanese colleagues with the development of the SAVE-J trial. Then that came out, and now there's been small randomized trials that have been published. So the data is accruing on this. And the other thing we could do, which is what most people do in these cases, is they terminate the resuscitation attempts, or they call the code. And that's just realistic. In a busy emergency department, you've been doing CPR for an hour, and you have other patients that are sick, and you need to get to them. So what are your options for that person? And that's really the standard of care in most American emergency departments is after a period of time, you would call the code. The thing that makes you really hesitant in this case is the ongoing gas exchange. So you'd say the time of death was, and that's what happened in this real case. The real patient I'm telling you about, we got a haste that we were getting 2 gunshots, 2 patients with gunshots, and you just don't have the resources, so you have to peel away from this person. And we pronounced her dead at 63 minutes post-arrest. Her end-tidal CO2 was still 28. So is she really dead? And what is dead? Are her mitochondria dead? Are her cells dead? Or is she dead? And it's very difficult to call those, but that's what we did. So what about putting her on a Lucas or an auto pulse, mechanical CPR as a bridge? This is a cool case that was in the Journal of Emergency Medicine back in 2014. And as I just read through this, you'll see very similar situation or parallels to the patient I was telling you about. This person's 53, he's a male, and he has known coronary artery disease. He's walking through a village in Italy, and he collapses and has a witnessed arrest witnessed by the person he's walking with. Dispatcher provided CPR instructions to the person walking with him because the person who was with him didn't know how to do CPR. So he gets dispatcher instructed CPR. And then the first responders get there 10 minutes after collapse with CPR in progress. Ventricular fibrillation, defibrillated, intubated, they put in an IV, give him some saline, 2 more shocks, epi times 3, amiodarone 300 milligrams. Sounds just like our patient. But what's different here is a helicopter now lands. They put the patient on a Lucas, and they start to transport the patient at 40 minutes after, this is interesting because they make the decision to transport when the VF actually degenerates into PEA, which is a bad sign in cardiac arrest, right? You'd rather have ongoing VF. But they decide to transport this patient to a hospital with a cath lab. They put some ice bags on him, use the Lucas, and then get to the cath lab, and they do a PCI, and they stent the LAD, and they stent the circumflex. So this person has complex left coronary disease. And you can see they're really sick at that point. Blood gas with a pH of 7.05, a base deficit of negative 10.6, and a lactate of 11.1. And then this person does what people do if you stent them and you open up the coronary myocardium that's causing the refractory VF. They go into a perfusing rhythm on their own. So they get return of spontaneous circulation after the PCI. So you have ischemic tissue, and then you reperfuse that ischemic tissue, and you stop the driver of refractory VF. So 115 minutes of cardiac arrest, 90 minutes on the Lucas. This person got, what was at that time standard of care for post-cardiac arrest syndrome, hypothermia, was extubated on day 5 and then had full recovery after rehab. So here's someone who 99% of the time in emergency departments around the world would be pronounced dead and die. And it shows you a potential alternative strategy. So going back to the patient I was telling you about, why would we think that ECMO is good for this patient? Why is she a good candidate for extracorporeal CPR? So she's healthy. She's 47. She shouldn't smoke, but she does. And she has hypertension. She's, good protoplasm to use an aggressive strategy on. She is a witnessed arrest. She's actually going like this when they come up the walk, and then she collapses. So they know exactly when this happened. She gets pretty immediate CPR with the delay of having to break into the house. And then she's a shockable rhythm. So all of this is what you want for an advanced resuscitation strategy. She got high quality CPR, and she had a short transport time to a facility where potentially she could get an advanced resuscitation strategy. And then what does the end tidal CO2 of 32 and the ongoing VF tell you? It tells you that she has ongoing gas exchange and that she's actually delivering oxygen to her tissues and then offloading CO2. So someone that is not just in that state of sort of metabolic entropy. So what is ECPR? We're going to put someone on ECMO in an emergency situation and use that as a bridge to treating the underlying cause of the arrest. A lot of this came out of Japan. The first people getting put on ECPR around the world were really in Japan, and it grew out of their experience. I mean, everyone thinks of Japan as, you know, Tokyo and the big cities with Yokohama and stuff, but 90% of Japan's mountainous and lots of snow and a lot of environmental hypothermia. So the Japanese started using ECMO to warm people up who were in cardiac arrest with environmental hypothermia, and then they said, well, why don't we translate this to patients with cardiac arrest from a coronary cause? So the first big study was the SAVE-J trial, which came out in resuscitation in 2014. And it's a really important study with also really important limitations. So if you look at this trial, it was not a randomized trial. It was a prospective observational study. And they had 26 programs that routinely used ECPR to treat refractory arrest and 20 programs that in general didn't. And right there, you start to get into some of the problems with this study because there was crossover in the standard group. But the inclusion criteria were what we're talking about. Refractory VF, no return of spontaneous circulation after 15 minutes of ED-based CPR. So pre-hospital and then 15 more minutes in the ED. It didn't have to be witnessed if it was VF. The idea there is VF. And so whether someone sees it or not, if it's VF when someone gets there, it was VF when it started. And then an age range in less than 60 minutes of time prior to attempting putting the person on bypass. And this is what they found in the SAVE-J trial. Very little survival if you're in refractory VF, neurologically intact survival. This is 1 month good outcomes. If you just continue to do conventional CPR. If you put the person on bypass and then you explore their coronary arteries, 13.7% good survival. This is 50% of the survivors, so it was 25% survival, and then CPC 1 or 2 was half of that group. So it's promising, but there's a lot of difficulties with this study because of crossover and of some of the more potentially salvageable patients in the standard group. So it's not a randomized trial. Let's see if this will play. This is a quick look at what they do. So this is an emergency department in Japan. This is an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest that gets worked in the field with CPR, defibrillation, and then brought into the hospital. And this is the emergency department in the hospital there. You see it's 9 a.m. in the morning. This is downtown Tokyo. And the person had bystander CPR. He's 65 years old, and VF's his initial rhythm. And so you can see a very old chest compression device here. And then after defibrillation, the third time, he goes into asystole, which is actually a bad prognostic indicator. So they're preparing the ECMO machine, and they're preparing the patient for cannulation. And they start some chilled saline, and they continue conventional ACLS. But different from what we heard about in the first talk, they're going to actually back off the epinephrine as they cannulate, based on the idea that they're going to be putting the person on to the pump, and they don't want to just keep on giving the person a vasoconstrictor during this time. So these physicians are emergency physicians and interventional cardiologists, so they're cross-trained. They also, most of them are critical care trained as well. And so they're the ones doing the cannulation. And so they're cannulating on both sides, and whoever, accesses the artery for the vein first is going to be the one putting them on ECMO, and then if the other side they're going to use for a balloon pump and a catheter. And so you'll see the sequential dilators going in. And you can see how calm it is. Compare this to, the stimulation overload that you see in a lot of codes. This is very quiet, very systematic. There's people assisting the cannulators and feeding the dilators on, so that everything's happening in a very systematic fashion. And this video is edited down to, the 5 minutes I'm showing you, but it's 15 minutes total that you'd be seeing for the cannulation, and then the next step is, so basically they have the two catheters in, and now they're going to hook up to the ECMO. And then they're just making sure that there's no bubbles in the system as they hitch the catheter to the ECMO tubing. And so now they're releasing the clamps, and so now you 15 minutes after arrival in the emergency department, the person has mechanical circulation. You can hear that the chest compression device is still going. So even though the ECMO is starting to run, they're keeping that going, and then they'll shut that off once the balloon pump is actually functional. And what you often see in this scenario, so you see good flow here, 4.6 liters of flow on the ECMO, and then once you get that good flow and you're giving blood flow to the coronary arteries again, the person will often start to fibrillate. And so here they're putting in the intra-aortic balloon pump, and so 22 minutes after ED arrival, the patient has ECMO and a balloon pump. And now what they're going to actually do here, you'll see this in one sec. So there he goes from asystole back into VF. And they're not going to shock that. They're just going to let it go, and it usually will convert to a normal sinus. So now they're going into the arterial side of the ECMO circuit, and they're going to use that access to the arterial side to do a coronary angiography. And then when they're done, they'll take that access and they'll hitch it down distally into the artery so they perfuse the leg. So they're going to use that as well. And we're almost done here. but here in the emergency department, they do the cath, and they find a blockage in the LAD, and they're putting a stent in it. So this is about 40 minutes of total emergency department time, where the patient gets put on ECMO, balloon pump, cath, stent, and so you've compressed down all this time, and you've restored perfusion, and you've fixed the problem with the coronary artery. Now you have to fix the patient after that. So let's just end by going through the most recent iterations of this approach that we've seen published in the literature. Dr. Yiannopoulos at the University of Minnesota has really been driving a lot of this in the U.S. With both basic science research and sequential studies of this. And he's an interventional cardiologist there. So this was their first study they published in JAHA in 2016. So they started this out-of-hospital protocol for refractory VF, and then used a Lucas device and took these patients to the cath lab, where they did some ultrasound to assess the whether the artery and veins, femoral artery and veins, were amenable to being cannulated for ECMO. And if they were, they'd put them on ECMO, do angiography, and then PCI as needed, and then if they got return to spontaneous circulation with that strategy, treat them with targeted temperature management and post-cardiac arrest care. So 27 patients transported, 18 met inclusion criteria. 83% of them were put on ECMO, 67% needed PCI, and 55% survived to discharge, with 50% of the total, 9 out of 18, with good neurologic outcome. So this suggested that a very organized approach to this could improve outcomes significantly. Then they followed up with a larger database of the same patients plus more compared to historic controls. So here is the group we were just talking about, ECMO, PCI, post-arrest care, and then they compared them to similar patients who either did or did not get ROSC using standard therapy. And you can see 45% survival to hospital discharge in the aggressive strategy and 15% in the standard therapy group. So this data led them to do the ARREST trial, which was published in Lancet back in 2020. And this was funded by the NHLBI, the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute at the NIH in the US, and was basically the same strategy: identify patients pre-hospital, transport them through the ED to the cath lab, put them on ECMO, or continue conventional CPR. And this is a complicated study to read into, because you'll see there's only 15 patients in each group. And you say, why did they do the study that way? And what you can see is there's 6 survivors in the ECMO group and 1 survivor in the other group. And this is the Kaplan-Meier curve of that survival. So what happened with this study is that the NHLBI's Data Safety Monitoring Board stopped this study early for efficacy. And to me, that's crazy, because you've, at that point, randomized 30 patients. The trial was supposed to have this adaptive randomization, so you'd end up with 2 people in the ECPR group for every 1 in the standard therapy group, but it started out with a 1-to-1 approach. And so there's this massive fragility index in this study where there's 6 survivors versus 1 survivor. And that's not a study that you can base a whole international change in how we do cardiac arrest care on. So very important trial, but really limited by the way the Data Safety Monitoring Board thought this study should be analyzed at the first interim analysis. The other study we have is the Prague study. Very similar, single-center adult witnessed out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, no return of spontaneous circulation, essentially the same interventional invasive strategy, mechanical CPR, intra-arrest transport, ECPR, and immediate coronary angiography and treatment, and then a standard therapy group. This trial was stopped early at the recommendation of the Data Safety Monitoring Board for futility, so the opposite reason. 256 patients were randomized, and the main analysis was based on survival to 180 days with good neurologic outcome. And you can see huge trend toward improved outcomes. 39 patients, 31.5% in the invasive strategy, 29 patients, 22% in the standard therapy group. So higher than Yiannopoulos' historic controls. And the odds ratio is 0.09. So big trend toward better outcomes, but probably an underpowered study that was stopped early because it's underpowered, so it can't reach significance by the end of the number of patients it was powered for. So to wrap that all up, I think the physiologic rationale for putting someone on ECMO during cardiac arrest and doing extracorporeal CPR is very sound. You need high quality CPR for salvage. Early cannulation may be another key. I showed you in the SAVE-J trial how it had to be under 60 minutes, and there's a lot of data that things really decline after that 60-minute period. There's case series and now single center reports that suggest a benefit, and as I just pointed out, the randomized trial data is mixed and affected by small sample size, interesting statistical approaches, but both show a suggestion of improvement. So the best data at present, and if you actually read the arrest trial in the Lancet article, it will say what's known until the trial's done, and then what do they suggest. Basically, Yiannopoulos and his colleagues said that right now we're at a point where specialized programs with clear protocols have the best success, that what we need is a multi-center trial, but that multi-center trial would require programs that got up to a certain baseline of therapy before you started the trial, because otherwise they're just learning how to do it while you do it. And if, like many huge international trials, you enroll 3 or 4 patients at each center while they're on the learning curve, you're not going to get any insight into what happens if you actually have expertise in this and then you start the trial. Time is of the essence, and we need more data from well-developed programs. This can be brought into the pre-hospital setting. This is from Regensburg, and this is an Audi sport wagon. That is their ECMO car that they take to out-of-hospital cardiac arrests in Regensburg, and they've published on their results from that as well. So thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting, and I think in the future of emergency is very important topic. And we have time for take question or comment. Yes.
So we have all the 3 speakers.
Thank you very much. Please.
Ready to answer. Need there be any questions? So to summarize all the sessions, the first session spoke about epinephrine and its expanded role in resuscitation and the upcoming research which has to open up the era to bettering resuscitation for the future. The second talk focused on simulation and the team building exercises around resuscitation. And the third lecture spoke about ECMO and its role in resuscitation. 3 different and important aspects of resuscitation were covered in this session. So if there are any questions you could ask, please introduce yourself, where are you from, and address the question to the speaker. Can we have a traveling mic, please?
I didn't see. No.
Tell them in Turkish for the mic. Any questions? Yes. The mic coming, please.
Yes.
Please introduce yourself and address the speaker.
Okay, I want to ask the question to Dr. Lucas. Can we separate the patients for using epinephrine in traumatic and non-traumatic patients? Not traumatic arrests, sorry.
Can you?
Did you repeat, please?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Keep
my
the
question is
mic a little far.
Yes. Okay. Using epinephrine patients.
Epinephrine?
Yes, for traumatic and non-traumatic arrests.
Between differences?
Differences that separated in the researches.
Traumatic or non-traumatic?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Lucas.
Thank you for this question. I suppose it's a good question, but unfortunately, currently we don't have such as data, and there is no such as even good clinical trials and meta-analysis in this subgroups. So this is also a nice idea for the future study, because when we together develop the protocol of the study, we should collect as much data as we can, and then we can perform some subgroups, some sub-analysis, and in future maybe we will be able to answer on your question. I have maybe not question, but also according to the lecture about the ECMO, because of course we use the ECPR to treat the patients, to increase the survival rate of these patients. But for example, in Poland, and probably you, Professor, also know this situation, we also use ECPR as a bridge to transplantation donors. So this is also some kind of important topic of this situation, because we don't leave the patients after cardiac arrest on the scene, but perform the chest compression using mechanical chest compression device, then transfer to the emergency department, implement the ECMO, call for transplantation team, and then decide what will be the next.
One quick question to the team. We are still rambling with controversies between cardiac arrest resuscitation in trauma versus non-trauma. Till now, both the think tanks, the trauma resuscitation think tank and the opinion tank of cardiac resuscitation, there has been no consensus. So if you look at different countries, they are handling what you can say trauma code or traumatic cardiac arrest very differently. Many countries feel that giving blood first, looking for the 5 causes of trauma is very, very important. Then they do internal CPR versus external CPR, things like that. Do they do open thoracotomy, not open thoracotomy? So in such a complex situation where trauma code after so many years is still unsolved, where do both the opinion leaders stand in terms of dealing with that complexity where two different specialties have not been able to reach a consensus?
Yeah, I fully agree, but as I say, if we create some study and obtain really huge amount of different outcomes and different comorbidities, then we can globally decide what will be the best for those patients, because we will know each comorbidity, we will know what was the cause of trauma, how many blood was lost, and etc., etc.
So basically a traumatic cardiac arrest registry would be a better option.
Yeah, I suppose not maybe only traumatic or no traumatic. I think the best option will be create some out-of-hospital registry, cardiac arrest registry, including traumatic and non-traumatic, because then we can decide much more.
Yeah. All right.
Sagar, I mean, I think the issue with epinephrine and penetrating traumatic arrest, certainly, and you know, in blunt that has led to intra-abdominal hemorrhage and stuff, is like, how could the epinephrine help, right? How, if I just watched a arrest in our trauma bay, you know, 8 gunshots, one that turned out to be through the left ventricle, but the first few minutes of it were chest compressions and epinephrine, and you say to yourself, what is that doing for this person? The only thing that's going to salvage that patient possibly is thoracotomy and fixing the cause of no blood being in the vessel. So you have to think this through and figure out what you're doing, I think. And then I think you raised a very important issue about ECMO in CPR, and it's certainly a bioethical dilemma that a lot of people have, and there's countries like Spain that have set up programs, and if you do the cost-benefit analysis of putting a patient on ECMO, and then you're either, step 1 is obviously trying to salvage that patient, but step 2 is saying that if we can't salvage this patient, then there's lots of organs that can be harvested for the greater good. And most people who have refractory VF arrests are actually fairly healthy and have healthy organs. In the US, there's a lot of resistance to that argument, but the cost-benefit argument is definitely there if you figure in the organ transplantation. The cost-benefit analysis is probably in favor of ECMO anyway without the organ transplantation, but it's, you know, it's a different math at that point.
Yeah, I fully agree that it depends on countries. Yeah, but for example, in Poland we have some nice experiences basing on Spain, on Japan, and together with the transplantation team from Poznań, I suppose we started the program several years ago. Right now we have some positive effects, kidney transplantation, lung transplantation, etc. So I suppose it's going forward, but we need, of course, time to change the thinking of the society.
Lovely. One question for Dr. Peckler. Dr. Peckler, when you look at the challenges of doing team training, trauma code, which is a very important resuscitation confusion episode where you have the CPR algorithms clashing with the trauma team and the trauma surgeons in the same room when a trauma patient codes. So they have one mindset of running ATLS, and then there's the ACLS mindset which is running in the nurses and the residents and everybody else. So I personally, I don't know what the audience feels, that this is a huge communication gap situation where there is a lot of confusion, there can be anger, there can be many things. So where do you see simulation in situations where we are trying to put ECMO, we are trying to look at trauma code, and we are trying to do these new things in the world of resuscitation?
So, I mean, I guess the answer to the medical question is sort of similar to the last one, is that you want to try to figure out what the problem is and what exactly are you trying to fix. The simulation question, I suppose, or how would you look at that, that was what I mentioned about negotiation. What are we trying to do? Where are we trying to get? And how do you do that calmly with civility? And how do you actually express your opinions in a graduated sort of fashion to make things happen for the benefit of the patient? And again, that's practice, right? That is, how do you work on those skills? How do you make a statement to say, oh, I think we should do A because of this particular reason? And I think the ability to do that, or to speak up, especially if you are a junior physician to the senior one and you have a difference of opinion, how do you do that and maintain civility and actually do that in the benefit of moving the care of the patient forward? And I think you practice it, and it doesn't have to be a specific incident. or a specific scenario. I think it's something that is a culture that you'd have to create within your institution to make that work.
Hey, Brad, quick question just about your thoughts on simulation for complex things like airway or ECMO. And I've done a lot of ECMO simulation in the US and in Japan. And I guess, you know, obviously it's better than not doing it by a long shot. And I'm not denigrating simulation, but it seems to me that it takes you to here, and then the real world starts about here. And how do you fill that gap? Like, we've filled it sometimes in things like ECMO by doing sheep, you know, putting sheep on bypass, pigs on bypass, or having people go to the CT surgery ORs and systematically learn. But I guess that's it's just sort of this question, like it definitely gets you someplace, but then everything hits the fan when you're in the real world.
No, we actually do some ECMO sims. In New Zealand, there's only one ECMO center, and that's in Auckland, but they come down to us to do their simulation training. And you know, I mean, ECMO is a very technical thing. There are lots of technical aspects, lots of different tasks. And watching that video, I was really impressed, you know, and you mentioned how they were quiet and calm. Like, that would be a really hard thing to do. That didn't happen overnight. Those people work together, they've practiced, and they all know and competent at their physical tasks. But I mean, I don't speak Japanese, but clearly they were calmly speaking to each other and communicating, and I think that's probably where that comes in, is I think that's probably it. And you're right, there's no way you're going to take that to that next level, but I think to get it up to that point, to make it work, and as you said about, you know, having 3 or 4 centers in a multinational, like, that doesn't work, right? Everybody's got to actually be good at it and know how to do it, but how do you get to that point?
Thank you.
Well, yes, please, Dr. Muzaffar.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm Ashish Pala.
Okay.
I have a question for you. ECMO is kind of a bridge till the time you have a definitive plan for a patient. You know, you can't keep a patient unlimited on an ECMO. So if you're doing an eCPR upfront, how do you know, or how do you decide that what is going to be the final outcome? And in a country like India, or in a developing country where the cost is a major constraint, so would it be wiser to go ahead with an eCPR kind of a process for every person walking in, or how would you make a choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we do in medicine is sort of Bayesian statistics and pretest probability, right? So I think, like in the US, in my emergency department, if you're in cardiac arrest, it's most likely from a fentanyl overdose, right? So there's probably no role of ECMO in that patient. We can get those patients back. Even 90 minutes after arrest, we can get a heartbeat again in those people, but their brains are already just gone, and we don't have a salvage strategy for their brain. So I think what you have to say to yourself is, do I have a reversible cause of arrest that was acute in onset? I mean, from my perspective, a 35-year-old woman who's either pregnant or postpartum who has an arrest, that person should go on ECMO, because you know why they arrested, right? They're a massive pulmonary embolism 90% of the time. So someone who's digging a ditch and grabs their chest and is in VF afterwards, we know what's going on. They have a coronary occlusion and that needs to be fixed. So that's sort of, I think, the approach to it versus putting everyone on ECMO, because I think there's so many patients that won't benefit from it.
Yeah, and from our point in New Zealand, it's a very small country and we just would never have that kind of resource. And we've started to do it mostly ECMO for other things rather than cardiac arrest. As I said, it's only in Auckland and nowhere else in the country. And as I was thinking, you were talking, David, about the cost-benefit ratio, and in New Zealand, we sort of, as you would in India, it's the most for the greatest good, and unfortunately, we don't have sort of the volume that would actually make this worthwhile for us. And I think that's probably going to be something that you'd find quite frequently outside of really big places.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, and you just have to sift through these people, and that's why if you look at the ECPR protocols, they're trying to get to the patients with LAD occlusion or left main trunk occlusion or something like that. And then there's select other populations, overdoses that aren't opioids, beta blocker overdose, calcium channel blocker overdose, nortriptyline overdose, things like that respond to this kind of therapy. And then obviously refractory hypothermic arrests are perfect for this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Any other question or comment? Okay, the last.
Yeah, we'll take the last question.
Last question.
Thanks all of you for presentations. I am Ozan, an emergency medicine resident here. I want to ask Dr. David, and when deciding ECPR, do we have to choose a small group like healthy, witnessed collapse, and immediate CPR? Because I think there could be a selection bias, because this group already we expect good outcomes. What do you think about that?
Small MCPR, ACPR, yes.
If I'm understanding the question correctly, it's about, is it a small group of patients that would get this strategy? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and I think that group already we have expecting good outcomes, traditional CPR or ECPR. I think could be there a selection bias for to say ECPR is good.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Certainly, all the studies to date are small groups of patients, and that was what I was trying to get at when I disagree with the stopping of those trials at the point they did. The problem with any pre-stopping strategies is it's dependent upon what you say the survival benefit of the intervention will be, and that's always just extracted from low-level evidence. So it's something to keep in mind when you think about how you power studies. Oftentimes a study will be powered for a 20% absolute difference or 20% relative difference, and the therapies change so much by the time you get to doing the trial that there's no way you're going to have that 20%. So as you're pointing out, you need much larger groups of patients to see the difference. Like you look at the epinephrine data that was shown, and what's statistically significant there? 3.2% versus 2.4%. That's 0.8% absolute difference. But they're huge studies. And so you get this shuffling out of that. ECMO for ECPR needs much larger studies done at expert centers. It's just like when we do studies of stents, right, for coronary artery disease. We don't say hey, you're a family practice doctor, you put the stent in, right? It's interventional cardiologists with expertise who do it. You need people with expertise in cannulating people in cardiac arrest and putting them on ECMO, and then you do the trial.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's okay. We will finish. Okay. Thank you very much for your participation. And after 20 minutes, we will start to opening ceremony. We prepared for this ceremony 1 year. We have a lot of surprise in this ceremony. Waiting all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This year, we are commemorating the centenary of the Republic of Turkey. This is an honor for us to host this event in Turkey in this year. The biggest truth in the universe is a life, and the most important service is to serve a life. In the spirit of this Congress, we believe that the next chapter of emergency medicine will be written here. Thank you for all that. Firstly, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to our rectors, to President of EPAT, to President of VAJEM, and Director of VAJEM, and also to EPAT team, to VAJEM team, to faculties, to all who contribution for this event possible, and of course to you, all participants interested in VAJEM 2023. Our guests, let me remind you first, during your stay, if you face any issues, please do not hesitate to contact our staff. They are here to assist you. Before we start the Congress, we express our deepest gratitude to Gazi Mustafa Kemal and his friends, who made the ultimate sacrifice for the unity of our homelands and the future of our republic. I would like to invite everyone to observe a moment of silence in their honors and Turkey national anthem.